restored and monitored. And it's also a huge opportunity for new research, because now we have technologies that weren't there in the past. And so we can do many things like analyzing the skeletons and bones that were in the early years of the excavation simply thrown away. A huge loss of data, of course. Also a questionable treatment of these human remains, of course. So it's really a very, very fascinating, fertile moment for research on ancient Pompeii.
There were some extraordinary finds, weren't there? One was a bakery with an incredible fresco.
Yeah, it was much debated, especially in Italy. It almost looks like a pizza, because of course that can't be, because they had no tomatoes at the time and no mozzarella. But it's probably a kind of flat bread, a pita bread, with some very simple things, dates, maybe some spices, and then you see a cup of wine next to it. So that's in some form the ancestor of the pizza, I think we could reasonably call it.
Reading, one of the many fascinating little things that came out of your book was the fact that you like to go for nocturnal walks in Pompeii.
That's a privilege of the director who works in Pompeii, that we can be there also after closing time, which is really magic, in the nighttime without any light. Only the light of the stars and the moon, the sounds. It's almost as if the city comes back to life in a way, which is often the case. If you go into the houses of Pompeii, you feel like the owners must have just left 5 minutes ago.
Thank you for listening to the interview from the BBC World Service. You'll find more in-depth conversations on the interview wherever you get your BBC podcasts, including episodes with former US Vice President Kamala Harris, global education activist Malala Yousafzai, and Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado. Until the next time, goodbye for now.
From the BBC, that was the interview. I'm Saroja Coelho. Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live downtown in our CBC studios on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and YouTube. It's wet out there this morning, and it could be challenging a little bit later. 60% chance of more rain. That will change to flurries and then freezing drizzle late this morning. And gusty winds, northwest 30 to 50. Our temperature is going to fall to -8. Brandon, very similar. Your temp falling to -5 with those gusty, drizzly conditions. And up in Thompson, some periods of light snow that you've been getting should end this morning for you. Your temperature will also fall today to -22. The morning show is on till 8:37 a.m. Thanks for starting with us. Corey Funk is back directing the show and covering your commute. Morning, Cor. Good morning, Mr. Abby Adiyemi, who's behind the controls. Abby's our senior tech on the show. We'll hear him on air doing the weather. And there's Darren Marash with a fresh new haircut. Waving hello. Darren is our YouTube producer if you're watching the show. It streams live. 2 minutes to 6 o'clock. I talked us out of a minute. Heather Wells is here live as well, part of our team in our news center with our headlines.
Good morning. Well, suspended Manitoba PC board member Patrick Allard says party members are shooting themselves in the foot. The PC suspended Allard yesterday over a weekend Facebook post about U.S. immigration and customs enforcement, only days after an ICE agent shot and killed a woman in Minneapolis. Allard questions why a Conservative Party can be upset with a statement in support of border control. We'll hear more about that. And police and fire crews are in the 400 block of Sherbrooke this hour. Police say fire started in a residential structure around 4:30 this morning. It is not known if anyone was in that building at the time. I'll be back with more Manitoba News coming up at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, you might have been listening to the national news and paying attention to what's happening in Calgary with their water. They've been told to conserve water last month after another major water main break. Now, we have similarly aged pipes in Winnipeg. So today, a special report Could that happen here? Stay tuned. Also, does the next generation want to build a life in Manitoba or leave the province? It is a question we'll pose to our Gen Z panel. That is coming up after statistics that we looked at showed some migration changes, not for the better for our province. And then we will also talk more about what is happening with all the bad news in the world and how you navigate it, talking to your kids.
Nonfiction Prize is one of the most prestigious writing prizes for original unpublished works in Canada, and it's now open. Up for grabs, cash prizes from the Canada Council for the Arts, a 2-week writing residency at the Banff Centre for Arts and Creativity, and your work published on CBC Books. Contest closes March 1st. The 2026 CBC Nonfiction Prize. For rules and more, go to cbcbooks.ca.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe will be joining Prime Minister Mark Carney in Beijing. The Prime Minister flies to China today. Canada is re-engaging with the superpower at a time when U.S. tariffs are slamming some Canadian industries. But Saskatchewan is feeling the pain of Chinese tariffs on canola products. And as Tom Perry reports, some experts are urging caution.
I think the key is, in our case, to go into this relationship with clear eyes.
To Richard Fadden, former director of the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, it makes sense for Canada to try to rebuild relations with China, an economic giant. But he says Canadian officials need to keep in mind Beijing's track record.
Yes, we want to do things on the economic, the trade, and a few other sectors, but we want to make it clear to the Chinese that, foreign interference and espionage is not on.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is traveling to Beijing looking to reset the Canada-China relationship. Ties between the two countries frayed under former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, with China detaining 2 Canadians, Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, and with Beijing accused of interfering in Canadian politics and seeking to intimidate members of the Chinese-Canadian community. Despite that, China remains an important market for Canadian business. And Graham Shantz, president of the Canada-China Business Council, says there's huge potential for growth.
We think we're underperforming compared to some of our competitors, for example, Australia, the U.S., and others, and we think we can do better.
While relations between Canada and China are warming, Beijing continues to tariff Canadian canola, pork, and seafood, retaliation over Canada's 100% levy on Chinese electric vehicles, a topic that's expected to be raised when the Prime Minister sits down with Chinese leaders. Tom Perry, CBC News, Ottawa.
The Prime Minister will be making a pit stop in northern BC en route to China, and he'll be using his time in Prince Rupert to meet with the leaders of coastal First Nations. Let's bring in Janice McGregor from our Parliamentary Bureau. And Janice, what will you be watching for?
Marcia, 2 urgent concerns intersect at this meeting. The Carney government's push to position Canada as a safe and reliable energy supplier in the wake of rapidly shifting international developments, and First Nations anxieties about how the federal government's agenda of building, diversifying trade, growing the economy treats consultation with them as a bit of an afterthought, not a prior legal requirement. Coastal First Nations have wanted the Prime Minister to come to their territory for nation-to-nation conversations for months. Tensions spiked when the Prime Minister went ahead, signed a memorandum of understanding with Alberta Premier Daniel Smith about the conditions required to build a bitumen pipeline to BC's coast without consulting them first. Natural Resources Minister Tim Hodgson's subsequent quip that he could just talk to Indigenous leaders over Zoom didn't help. These First Nations have made their objections to oil tanker traffic on their coast explicitly clear. They've warned they're prepared to pull their support for other natural gas, critical mineral projects, hydroelectric developments if they aren't heard. Hodgson and Carney will be joined today by Housing and Infrastructure Minister Gregor Robertson and Vancouver MP Wade Grant, who's a former Musqueam First Nation band councillor. The agenda suggests a 2 to 3 hour meeting and then a photo op with a local business. By early afternoon, Carney will carry on his way to China to sign perhaps new agreements, which could include a push for the Chinese to purchase more and invest more in Canadian energy. Coastal First Nations leaders are expected to speak with reporters after their meeting. We'll see if this stop along the Prime Minister's way meets their expectations.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa. The United Nations Human Rights Office is urging the Iranian government to respect the rights of its people. Jeremy Lawrence is a spokesperson for the office.
This cycle of horrific violence cannot continue. The Iranian people and their demands for fairness, equality and justice must be heard.
The UN agency says hundreds have been killed and thousands arrested so far. But one Iranian official told Reuters that 2,000 people have been killed. That official blamed terrorists for the deaths. Iran's internet has been shut down for more than 100 hours. But for the first time in days, authorities are allowing the public to make phone calls abroad. Ukraine's two largest cities are assessing the damage this morning. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia attacked overnight with drones, ballistic and cruise missiles. Firefighters carry a man on a stretcher over piles of rubble in Kharkiv. Ukrainian officials say at least 4 people are dead. Several others were injured. Officials in Kharkiv say infrastructure was damaged. Ukraine's capital was also hit. Kyiv is reporting power outages. Ukraine's military says it has attacked a drone manufacturing plant in Russia's Rostov region. Parts of the facility are on fire. A CBC investigation has found an Ontario Police Service is pushing back against its workplace mental health benefits. Officers at the service, just east of Toronto, describe a culture that isolates members who go on mental health leave. Many say they feel betrayed after years of dedicated service. The CBC's Ralph Ravindran has more.
Having that support from your employers is important, and that support just doesn't exist.
This police officer spent years working for Durham Regional Police Services in Ontario, but when he was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, he says he got virtually no support. We've altered his voice to protect his identity because he fears retaliation for speaking with media. He's one of 6 Durham officers CBC News interviewed on PTSD leave. They all say the service is challenging their workplace benefits and that the workplace culture isolates and stigmatizes those on mental health leave. Their stories follow a 6-year report into Durham Police by the Ontario Civilian Police Commission, released in November. It says the service vigorously opposed members' PTSD applications to the Workplace Safety Insurance Board. The public-facing report, released via Freedom of Information request, was heavily redacted, so it didn't include officers' testimonies about the impact of the service challenging their application. Durham Police data shows the service objected to 10% of all claims from 2023 to 2025. Chief Peter Moreira said it does this to get more information about a claim.
There's no other mechanism by which, as an employer, we can find out any information with regards to how the injury happened, how we can best support it, and how we can prevent it from happening to someone else.
Moreira said the service has strong wellness resources that are constantly improving, but officers told CBC News they haven't seen any change. Rochelle Ravindran, CBC News, Oshawa, Ontario.
The BBC is asking a Florida court to dismiss a defamation lawsuit filed by U.S. President Donald Trump. The British broadcaster is being sued over the way it edited a speech made leading up to the January 6th Capitol riots 5 years ago. The BBC also apologized to Trump, but it says he failed to prove that it published the documentary with actual malice, a requirement for a case of defamation. The BBC says it did not create, produce, or broadcast the documentary in Florida, so the court does not have jurisdiction. Trump is seeking a total of $10 billion in damages. Geologists are confirming a decades-old hypothesis with the help of an earthquake on the Alaska-Yukon border. They say the quake revealed a hidden fault line under glaciers. Katrin Pilkington has the story from Whitehorse.
A helicopter full of researchers is scouring a remote mountain region in southwest Yukon, looking for avalanches and landslides, evidence of a magnitude 7 earthquake that struck in this area on December 6th. Here's Jan Detmer with the Yukon Geological Survey.
This is the largest crustal on-land earthquake in Canada in the last 75 years, so this is a really special event.
The plate activity is actively building mountains in the area. It's also special for another reason. It's shedding new light on a blind spot for seismologists about the area where the Pacific and North American tectonic plates converge. Usually it's difficult to study as it's covered by thick glaciers.
It had been hypothesized since the 1960s, but we haven't been able to directly observe it, and now we can.
Southern Yukon is still feeling aftershocks far from more populated parts of the region like Whitehorse or Anchorage, Alaska.
A magnitude 7 in other parts of the world can kill 10,000 people. The land that actually moved, the rupture was probably on the order of 50 to 100 kilometers long.
That's Michael West, state seismologist and research professor at the Alaska Earthquake Center.
There are researchers all around the world investigating this earthquake in different ways.
West says work is already underway to understand what's happening underground and what dangers it could present to nearby communities. Katrin Pilkington, CBC News, Whitehorse.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Well, very wet out in Winnipeg this morning. 4 degrees now, our temperature will fall. Thanks for joining us on CBC's Morning Show, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. This hour on the show, the Giller Prize jury looks a little different this year. They're asking bookstore owners to help decide whose fictional book will win the $100,000 prize. The co-owner of Winnipeg's own McNally Robinson is on the jury. He's going to join us this hour to talk about that. Also, we're only in the third week of 2026, but you might already be taking a news break from the world for your mental health. We're going to talk about the effects of information overload. And then it is wheels up again for Mark Carney. We're going to talk to journalist Ryan Tumulty about the Prime Minister's trip to China. We've already heard some analysis this morning on World Report. We'll get into current temperatures and conditions with Abby in just a moment. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells for our live news headlines. Good morning.
Well, a 15-year-old boy in Winnipeg faces charges in a sextortion case involving a teenage girl in Belgium. Winnipeg police say the two had been in contact for about a year, and the girl was coerced into sending intimate images. Those images were then posted on social media without her consent. Police say the boy demanded the girl send him money to make him stop uploading those images. We'll hear what happened next coming up. As well, Manitoba will not order public servants back into the office full-time, bucking what two other provinces are doing. Manitoba Premier Rob Canoe confirms in an interview his government will continue allowing remote work for many public servants. He says flexibility is good for families. More stories coming up at 6:30.
You know what's interesting about that? In his monthly interview previously, he talked about wanting some public servants to be back in the office, but he was specifying managers at that time. So it's interesting. So, you know, as you said, it's some public servants. We'll see what he does moving forward.
Yeah, and in this province, by the way, about 30% of Manitoba civil servants do work remotely at least once a month.
Is that the number, right?
A lot of people are impacted.
Yeah, interesting. All right, thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Next news at 6:30 here. It is, or anytime I should mention, as she says, at cbc.ca/Manitoba as things develop. Speaking of developments, Abby is here to talk about how this is as warm as it's going to get today.
Yeah, this is as warm as it's going to get. From here, we get to see the minus 20s again. Like tonight, we should be hitting minus 20 in the city. Though it's more like a day of transition, as we're going to see rain sometime this morning in most of the southern regions, and that will transition to a bit of snow, while the north is still getting those wind chills in the valleys of minus 38s to minus 40s the further you travel towards Tuduila Lake this morning. For Winnipeg, it's currently 4 degrees, mostly cloudy outside. Our temperatures expected to drop to minus 8 this afternoon. And also there's a good chance of rain showers that's going to be switching over to some flurries sometime this morning, along with gusts and northwest winds and a risk of freezing drizzle to come with that also. Similar conditions we're seeing in the southern part of the province this morning. Most of the regions, we're looking at temperatures between 4 degrees around the Morden area. Brandon is around 3 degrees. Particularly Perry, we're looking at 3. Steinberg 3. Sprague 3. We're looking at 3 and 4 degrees in most of the regions down south, while temperatures will fall sharply to minus 8 as the morning showers turn into flurries. Up north, we're seeing temperatures hover between minus 19 and minus 23 already this morning, with a wind chill close to minus 40 in the region. So it's that transition, Marcy, we're going to see. We're going to start saying goodbye to those mild conditions, and then the rain would come and some flurries would come and some freeze and drizzle will come, more like the general weather returns this week, Marcy.
Yeah, back and forth a little bit. I think today it's unusual because we start above zero and then we're going to end below zero. So,
yep. And then tonight we're going to get to minus 23.
Yeah, so it's just bizarre. Let's get into what's happening in the drive and the slippery walk. Corey Funk is in.
Yeah, it was actually pretty slushy actually on the way in today. It was.
You know, I found my backyard and my deck crazy slippery, and then I found that my drive was all wet.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, totally slushy. You're right.
Yeah, so
mixed bag.
Yeah, heads up out there. I know that's the case on the sidewalks and the roads as well. But other than that, I haven't heard of any major issues out there on the highways or anything else. But just heads up as that temperature drops, though. Things are going to get slippier and slippier. So just be careful as the day comes on. But for now, pretty quiet. But if it's not quiet where you are or too quiet where you are, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, we have flipped the calendar to a new year, and one of the things that's going to be discussed in this country this year is medical assistance in dying. That is because in May, there's going to be the Canadian Association of Medical Assistants in Dying Assessors and Providers National Conference in Montreal. And one of the big things they're going to be looking at is who is approved, going to be allowed to be approved and to apply for MAID. It could be extended to an additional group of people who are struggling with mental health. One of the other questions that is contentious here is around whether or not publicly funded faith-based hospitals should be allowed to refuse people MAID. Now, that question is being heard right now by BC's Supreme Court. The Charter of Rights challenge is being brought by the advocacy organization Dying with Dignity Canada and the parents of 34-year-old Heather O'Neill. She has stage 4 cervical cancer. She was forced to leave a Catholic-run hospital to receive medical assistance in dying. And in court documents, her family and friends say that O'Neill was in intolerable pain in her final hours and did not want to move from her room. But she had to be fully sedated then and did not regain consciousness before her death. Heather's mother, Gail O'Neill, spoke yesterday ahead of this trial.
Sam O'Neill died on April 4th, 2023 at St. John Hospice in Vancouver, British Columbia. She suffered a painful forced transfer from St. Paul's Hospital because the cancer she had been living with became intolerable, and she chose to die by medical assistance in dying rather than endure more suffering. The MAID procedure goes against Catholic teachings. St. Paul's is a Catholic-run hospital, but it is also publicly funded. There was no medical justification for the transfer. There was no specialized equipment. There was nothing special about the facility or room. And there was no specialized medical staff unique to St. John's Hospice. There was nothing at St. John that was not readily available in Sam's room at St. Paul's Hospital. Providence Healthcare simply does not allow MAID to be completed at St. Paul's. Providence Healthcare knew their policies and actions to transfer Sam on April 4th, 2023 would cause her harm and excruciating pain and humiliation, but they did it anyways. This disregard for Sam's safety is contrary to their legal obligation to take reasonable action to prevent harm. The government of British Columbia and the Vancouver Coastal Health aided Providence Healthcare's actions with a MAID policy that allows harm, and it pays for it with public tax dollars. We are here because we believe Sam's rights to freedom of religion and beliefs and her rights to life and liberty and security of person were violated. We are also here because we do not want to see anyone else suffer needlessly from another unjustified forced transfer. We miss our daughter every minute of every day. We absolutely respect her wish to put an end to her own suffering and take control of her destiny and die with the dignity she deserved. Sam didn't want the cancer to win. MAID could have helped her accomplish that last piece of control in her life. That tiny piece of control was squashed by the disrespect of her beliefs by Providence Healthcare and the government of BC. Their actions were cruel. The assumption and attitude that Sam's beliefs, or the beliefs of anyone seeking reasonable access to MAID or medical assistance in dying, are inferior and unequal beliefs, results in harm. This attitude of Providence Healthcare and the government of BC has no place in Canada. Forced transfers must be stopped. Thank you.
That was Gay O'Neill, the mother of Heather O'Neill, who chose a medically assisted death in April 2023. Gay is one of the plaintiffs in a Charter of Rights challenge over access to medical assistance in dying in faith-based healthcare facilities. As you heard, this one was publicly funded. Legal experts expect any judgment in the case will be appealed to the Supreme Court of Canada, and obviously across Canada may have implications for all of us in our provinces. So MAID will be very much something discussed this year across this country. It is mostly cloudy. It's 4 degrees in Winnipeg. I'm seeing people out there in hoodies right now, and it's wet in downtown, walking past our studio window. Later, they're going to want to layer up. The temperature, as Abby said, is going to fall to -8 with gusty winds. Well, we have a song that relates to the month that is. One dry January, this next artist and a friend were discussing their reasons for participating in abstaining from alcohol, and they decided to do it, to put a pause. The track Up From Here from Logan Richard was one of CBC Music's top 100 Canadian songs for 2025, and that story I just told is one of its origins. Here it is. This is Logan Richard and Up From Here.
We can only go up from here. Don't look now, what's in the rear view mirror. Don't look back, don't reprise. Don't let your dust get in your eyes. I know we can only go up from here. Nobody told you, nobody tried. They could have warned you about the devil on your mama's side. You bit the apple from the family tree, and now you're a shadow of the person that you used to be. We can only go up from here. Don't look now, what's in the rear view mirror. Don't look back, don't reprise. Don't let your dust get in your eyes. I know we can only go up from here. Sooner or later, it was bound to be. Was it the way you played your hand, or was it destiny? What does it matter? I'm here with you now, and I'll hold your hand through all the darkness till your sun comes out. Yeah. We can only go up from here. Don't look now, what's in the rear view mirror. Don't look back, don't reprise. Don't let your dust get in your eyes. I know we can only go up from here. Same old devil, same old pride, same old heart beating on the inside. I know we can only go
Logan Richard. He's based in Prince Edward Island. That track is up from here, reflecting on the impact of addiction in eyeing a path towards sobriety and reflecting on his own journey with Dry January. It is 6:24 a.m. It is January the 13th this morning, and today, all day as it happens. And it's mild out there in Winnipeg with 4 degrees. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team at Information Radio. And next on the show, even though we are barely 2 weeks into 2026, there has been so much terrible news. From the U.S. actions in Venezuela to the woman in Minneapolis gunned down by an immigration officer, the deadly crackdown against protesters in Iran, and of course, Donald Trump continuing to talk about expansion and taking over Canada. It's a lot to process. And to discuss the effects of absorbing all this on our mental health, Sarah Dimmerman is with us. She's a regular on the show. She's a psychologist. Hi there.
Hi.
So some people might say, yeah, okay, but it's terrible. But the past couple of years have been, not all that great, a lot of stress. What's your sense of why it might feel particularly overwhelming right now? Is it the beginning of the year? Is it the compound of everything? What's your sense of that?
Yeah, I definitely think it's cumulative. It's been going on for weeks, months, years, actually. And unfortunately, it just seems that over the last few months, hard to quantify it specifically, but over the last little while, we're being more and more bombarded on a daily basis by big news events. Any negative news is not good news, but these are pretty big news events, and people that we know and love are impacted more directly by living in certain countries around the world that are being impacted. So that has an impact on us too. This time of year as well, we don't have as much pep in our step. It's gloomier, days are darker. So I think that also contributes to being able to deal with what we're being bombarded with.
And how do you strike a balance between feeling informed and protecting your mental health, especially given that this has been going on for years?
Well, most of us have a natural tendency to want to be informed and to want to know more. Even when we're driving and we see an accident close by, we find it hard to focus forward, not turn our heads to see what's going on. However, for the most part, my recommendation is to try to keep facing forward and to resist the urge to doom scroll on your device for hours on end, or to go down rabbit holes so that one piece of bad news leads to the next. I might recommend that people who are suffering and overwhelmed by all this information either block certain platforms that deliver news to them on a daily or even more regular basis on their devices, that they choose a news show on a specific media channel, for example, that delivers news in more of a neutral, non-catastrophic manner where possible, or just to watch, listen, or read for less time of the day. So maybe pick 2 hours or 1 hour at specific times that you're not going to be as easily impacted by it. So if you find, for example, that watching or listening or reading the news too close to bedtime affects your sleep, then absolutely choose another time of day to do so.
What are the signs that you might be overwhelmed and may not even realize it?
So if you're feeling flooded, so in other words, feeling as if you're drowning in anxious thoughts, what if, anxiety, hopelessness about the state of the world's affairs, or just feeling hopeless in general. A lot of people these days I hear saying things like, I'm worried for the lives of our children and our grandchildren, for example, in terms of where is the world headed. That seems to be a big narrative right now. So if you're feeling that those kinds of thoughts are impacting you to the point that you can't function the way that you once did, so at work or at home, if you're finding that you're less patient, that you're more easily triggered when someone shares something with you about news or tries to talk to you about the news, and you feel like, I just cannot tolerate one more bit of information about this, then you're likely feeling overwhelmed in general.
In the next hour, we actually are going to talk to a parent after 7 o'clock who's been having some tough conversations with their kids about specifically the news coming out of America right next door. How do you ease anxiety when news constantly seems to be scary, but also there's some realities there, specifically when you're talking to teens and young people?
Right. Yeah, it really depends on the age of the children. So I would say that with teens and preteens or teens or older teens, most young people get electronic devices or telephone or cell phones, I should say. I'm aging myself. Cell phones quite young, and so they're on different social media platforms. They're getting a lot of information. They're hearing things on the playground even. And so sometimes they're not able to filter that information, especially since most of that information is unfiltered, unedited, because it's coming to them from people as opposed to from newscasts that have been edited, for example. So make sure that you're listening, you're not minimizing or ignoring their concerns, you're asking questions. And if they ask questions or they share feelings, it's important to acknowledge and validate what they're experiencing. And if you can, try to share some of the good that's coming out of something bad if there is, and talk about some people if there are that are working hard to make things better.
Mm-hmm.
And then younger children, just try to make sure that they're not around when you're watching or listening to the news, because even if they're really little, they're still absorbing
what's happening.
being said. And,
We'll leave it there, Sarah. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Sarah Dimmerman, psychologist and author. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, this is about as warm as we're going to be today. It feels like spring. It is 4 degrees out there. We are anticipating, though, a good chance of showers changing to flurries, and a strong northwest wind is going to send our temperature down to -8 by this afternoon and much colder overnight tonight. A 15-year-old boy in Winnipeg faces charges in a sextortion case involving a teenage girl in Belgium. Winnipeg police say the two had been in contact for about a year, and the girl was coerced into sending intimate images. The images were then posted on social media without her consent. Police say the boy demanded the girl send money to make him stop uploading those images. She contacted Belgian police. The Canadian Centre for Child Protection alerted Winnipeg police about this case in October. The centre's Jacques Marcoux would like to know if the girl tried to get the images removed before police got involved.
What we see in a lot of cases is platforms will drag their feet or will even ignore requests for help from users, and they will only act once it gets escalated to the point where law enforcement or cyber tip lines like us get involved, and that's a huge problem.
Marcoux says social media platforms make it easy to post anything online. He says the Canadian government should introduce regulations to make companies add features that enhance safety. The man accused of spray painting hate-related graffiti in Winnipeg last week has been charged with 3 new offenses, in addition to the 14 counts of mischief linked to the graffiti incidents on January 2nd. Oliver Aderhoff is charged with breaking into a house, failing to comply with a court order, and public mischief. Court records show the new alleged offenses took place Friday, just a day after he was arrested in connection with graffiti on a synagogue, a mosque, a high school, and some homes and vehicles. After his arrest, he was released on a promise to appear in court. Police did not say if Aderhoff remains in custody following these latest charges. Manitoba will not order public servants back into the office full-time, bucking what 2 other provinces are doing. Premier Wab Kinew confirms in a recent interview his government will continue allowing remote work for many public servants. He says that flexibility is good for families.
Right now we have a 3-day-a-week policy with the civil service in Manitoba, so I think it's a balancing act because, again, you have people with young kids and families and stuff like that.
Ontario and Alberta are ordering workers back to the office full-time, and the federal government is exploring ways to bring its staff to the workplace more often. In Manitoba, 30% of civil servants are working remotely at least once a month. Patrick Allard says the Manitoba Progressive Conservatives made a mistake when they suspended him from the party. Yesterday, PC leader Abhi Khan condemned Allard for posting Facebook comments in support of U.S. immigration and customs enforcement, only days after an ICE agent shot and killed a woman in Minneapolis. Allard questions why a Conservative Party can be upset with a statement in support of border control. He says the PC should call themselves the Progressive Party instead.
They've shown that they're not willing to work with strong Conservatives, and they want to cater to the center of the road, middle of the road people who tend to vote for the NDP. They've shot themselves in the foot. They've told the Conservative base, we don't want you.
Khan says the PC board will meet to decide whether to kick Allard out of the party for good. Prime Minister Mark Carney is leaving for China today, the first trip by a Canadian Prime Minister since 2017. Canada hopes for a reset in the frosty relationship. Veena Najibullah is with the Asia Pacific Foundation.
This is a high-stakes visit, and it will be real tests for Prime Minister Carney's pragmatic foreign policy. Success will depend on how he's able to strike a difficult balance between seizing economic opportunities while at the same time protecting Canada's economic interests and national security. He will also have to manage some real difficulties when it comes to domestic politics, interests from Saskatchewan's canola versus the auto sector in Ontario.
Carney will meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Relations between Canada and China are warming, but Beijing continues to tariff Canadian canola, pork, and seafood. Retaliation for Canada's 100% levy on Chinese electric vehicles. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. And nature is not cooperating for groups in Flin Flon trying to make and use winter trails damaged by last summer's wildfires. Trails used for snowmobiles, skiers, and snowshoers are blocked by fallen trees and burned bridges. John Trumbley at the Border Explorers Snowmobile Club has seen the impact. His son's home was destroyed, and the club's garage came close to burning too. The club maintains more than 200 kilometers of sled trails.
Most of our trails have been damaged either by the fire or by the late October snowstorm we received and windstorm. Fire being the most prominent, but there is lots of damage even done by the snowstorm, more than we would have anticipated. Just about every trail we've had to look at so far has massive amounts of damage.
A lack of snowfall hasn't helped. Outside of one winter storm, Flin Flon hasn't seen much snow to help keep those trails covered. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thanks, Heather Wells.
Thank you.
Okay, it's time for your regional forecast with Abby Adiemi.
Yeah, good morning once again, Marcy. We are looking at a day where we should be expecting some more like rainy conditions this morning. That will transition to freezing rain as we get along, and then we'll see some flurries also come with that. But for now, 4 degrees in the city, mostly cloudy conditions. We do have that good chance of rain showers coming our way, and that will transition to flurries as you get into the morning. Temperatures will only fall from here. We're going to see temperatures get to about -8 by the afternoon period. And then some gusty winds would come from the northwest. Tonight stays breezy. We dropped about -23 with a wind chill in the valleys of -33 to -35. For the Pembina Valley region, Modern Winkler, Alton and Morris tracking it towards Port La Prairie this morning. 4 degrees also in that part of the province. Cloudy start, a good chance of showers turning to flurries as temperatures will drop to about -5 behind gusty windy conditions in that part of the province. For the Westman region, from Brandon towards Nipawin this morning, 3 degrees there. It is clear. Expect a good chance of flurries later this morning as we see temperatures also fall to about -5 in the afternoon. For folks around the Parkland region, from Dauphin towards Roblin, 4 degrees there. Some flurries already spotted in that part of the province. That should end this morning, and then we'll see your temperatures fall to about -8 with some windy conditions also coming with that. Gimli, good morning. You are at 4 degrees right now. A good chance of rain that will transition to flurries this morning, along with a risk of freezing a drizzle before we see temperatures drop to -8 later today. Now, tracking it into the northern part of the province, the powerful influence surrounding communities, we're looking at temperatures between -10 and -25 this morning, depending on where you are. We'll see temperatures get to -11, with temperatures even falling to -21 later in the day. Thompson is at -19 at this time. We've been getting those drifting snow in that part of the province. Temperatures fall to about -22, making the wind chill. With the winds come with that, it's going to feel like -31, a risk of frostbite for folks in that part of the province. And finally, for Churchill, we're seeing -23 there at this time. Light snow falling. Your high only gets to -21, though the wind chill factored in, it's close to -40 throughout the day. So it's more like that transition for most of the province, though the north still holding the cold spot, while down south we're beginning to see those mild temperatures temperatures transition into more like the cool ones. So most of the regions in the south will see temperatures fall today.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk is in with our commute. Hello.
Hello. My mom called the commuter line. She was on her way actually to my place to do some childcare today. Thanks, Mom. Love
Hi.
you. Yeah, she said it was very sloppy out there. I think she mostly just called to say hi. Let's be serious. But it is quite sloppy out there. She said get that windshield washer fluid going. She was spraying quite a bit. Down on a bike also called as well. He actually says the bike trails are actually pretty clear, not as sloppy as the roads right now. That's along the rapid transit. So thanks for that call too, Dan. Other than that, pretty quiet so far. But if you do see something going on, let me know, and just be careful as those temperatures do drop. As we heard, things are going to get slippery throughout the day. So give me a call if you see anything though. 204-788-3093.
All right. Thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
Thanks, Corey's mom. 21 minutes to 7 o'clock on CBC. And next, Chrisley Ramlakan is here with our business news. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So let's start with the price of housing. How is it looking for renters?
Well, average asking rents fell to just over $2,000 a month in December, their lowest in more than 2 years. And this latest report from rentals.ca and Urban Nation says rents are down compared to 2 years ago, but they are still 14% higher than pre-pandemic levels in 2019. So Urban Nation says the demand and supply factors that pushed rents higher between 2022 and 2024 reversed last year. So it says a combination of record high apartment completions, population growth slowing down, economic uncertainty, and affordability challenges have all worked together to push down rents. And it predicts rents are likely to continue trending down in the near term as these conditions persist. And rent declines have been led by secondary market units. So average asks for things like houses, townhouses, and condo apartments are down. But of course, I'm talking about the average trends across the country here, and things are a little bit different when you drill down to the provinces. So average apartment rents actually moved 1% higher in Manitoba last month to just over $1,600 a month. Of course, that's less than the national average, but there in Manitoba, you saw rents go up a little bit.
Let's go to another story here. Prime Minister Mark Carney is on his way to China, as we've been hearing, but he will stop in northern BC on the way. What are we expecting out of those meetings?
We were hearing a little bit about this on the news from Heather, but Carney is set to meet with coastal First Nations. Today's meeting is expected to focus on major projects in the region. There is a strong opposition to the potential oil pipeline, and two First Nations are challenging the federal government in court over a planned liquefied natural gas facility. And then when he gets to China, federal officials say there actually might be some relief coming soon on Chinese tariffs out of this meeting, but probably not a total end to the dispute with Beijing. So this 3-day visit to Beijing is the first for a sitting prime minister in more than 8 years. And over the last 2 years, Canada has imposed a 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles and a 25% import tax on Chinese steel and aluminum. And then China responded by hitting Canada with a 100% tariff on canola oil in March, followed by a levy on canola seed. And China also improvised a 25% levy on Canadian pork and seafood. Now, some premiers and industry groups want tariffs dropped, while Ontario Premier Doug Ford, the auto sector, and some China experts have cautioned against allowing Chinese vehicles into Canada.
And the latest round of artifacts from Hudson's Bay is heading to auction. What kinds of things are up for sale?
So 198 pieces go up for sale today, including Indigenous art, canoe paddles, marionettes, coins, suitcases, and model boats that once belonged to the fallen department store. So Heffel Fine Art Auction has been selling off 4,400 pieces of art and artifacts since November to try to help the defunct retailer recoup cash for its creditors. Previous auctions have really been centered on art, but this one focuses heavily on retail-era decorative items. So there's striped blankets as old as 1930, an HBC typewriter, a teddy bear wearing one of the company's striped coats, and even a plaster mold for the retailer's coat of arms. Also up for sale is a poster from the 1940s film Hudson's Bay, a beaver pocket watch, and an RCMP commemorative sword. And other items are from businesses HBC acquired over the years, like Simpsons and Morgan's. Now, most of the items are priced at just a few $100s or less, so, might be in the budget for some people looking for, some of these artifacts that are for sale. The auction runs online until January 27th, and several more sales, though, will be held throughout the remainder of the year.
All right. Thanks a lot, Crystalie.
Okay, thanks, Marcy.
Crystalie Ramlicam with our Business News Live on CBC. Nice overhead shot of our wet streets in downtown Winnipeg, looking still more like middle of March, but it is in fact middle of January. Well, the jury for Canada's most prestigious book prize looks a little different this year. For the first time, independent bookstore owners will decide which fiction authors will take home the $100,000 prize. Now, Chris Hall is co-owner of Winnipeg's own McNally Robinson booksellers, and he made it onto this jury. So bookstore owners is new because in the past, artists and authors comprised the jury. And Chris is live and up with us now. Good morning.
Good morning.
So how does it feel to have kept this a secret? How long have you known?
I've known, I think, since the summer. I'm trying to remember, but yeah, it feels like a long time keeping it secret.
No doubt. So what do you feel like being selected as a juror for the Giller?
Well, I'm thrilled. It's an honor. The Giller Prize is one of the big events in the book selling calendar, and so I've of course been right on top of it year after year after year. So it feels like a bit of a reward to get asked to be such a big part of it.
What goes into deciding who becomes a juror? Did you put your name forward? How did it happen?
No, they decided they wanted to go a different direction, kind of revive it, and so it was their idea to contact booksellers. So they contacted me very early in their process to see what the idea or how the idea would fly with us. And one of the big things is, do we have the time? Because that's going to be one of the challenging aspects of it.
That was one of my questions. So how many books do you have to read? I know you do you have a sense of that?
Sort of, it's somewhere maybe 150 is what it starts at. It depends on how many books get nominated by the publishers, and then the process is that gets split into 5. So each bookstore, there's individuals as well as a couple of pairs at the bookstores need to select which ones on their list kind of get rejected right away, and then those we don't have to read. But anything you move forward as being good enough, everybody has to read. So it's somewhere maybe around 100, but I'm curious to know that myself.
And how voracious of a reader are you regularly?
I like to say I read for a living. So I'm reading all the time. I have a long-standing habit of being up at 6 a.m. in my reading chair, and I get an hour and a half of reading done before I do anything else. So it comes with the territory. I was a long-time reader before I started book selling, so I was a natural candidate. So yeah, I do a lot of reading.
What goes into deciding, what books might go forward? What are you thinking about or planning to think about as you're going to be making these important selections?
Yeah, that's interesting. I asked if there was any criteria, and they said no, that the original idea was just picking the best book. So books it's so subjective, but there's got to be something that stands out that's extraordinary. Usually it takes more than plot for me. It's characters that are great, or an atmosphere, maybe combinations of things. So there's something that makes the great books kind of stand apart from others. So yeah, it's going to be subjective because every individual reader is different on those topics. So to pick the best one is going to be an interesting process.
And do you duke it out then after you sort of, retreated to the reading chair and had your read and comprise your thoughts? Is there then discussions that go forward?
Yes, absolutely. So you'd have your favorites yourself, and you see how much common ground there is with the others. And then, you've got to whittle it down first to a long list and then to a short list of 5 usually. And then you have to pick the winner. So yeah, that's, again, I'm curious what that process is like. I've never done it before, but it's ultimately subjective anyway. I've always said that if you're a reader and a book on the short list appeals to you, read it. It's a good book. There's no reason why it didn't win other than you have to choose one.
What would make you reject something outright? I'm curious.
Something that I don't know. It just doesn't catch you. It doesn't have anything. Yeah, it's hard to find. I think we've all experienced it. If you read a book, sometimes it just doesn't do it.
I think your sound knocked off there for us, Chris. We're just stopped hearing you. So something's gone on with your sound. Maybe you've hit a button or something there. See if we can reset you. Can you hear us still? I think we're having some problems there. All right. I think we're going to have to let Chris go. That's okay. Live radio, folks. Chris, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Oh,
I beg your
sorry.
pardon.
I
don't know what happened there.
I don't know what happened there either. Live radio, it happens. We were just talking about what's going on and why you would reject a book outright. You were explaining it's just something doesn't hit you about it, and like you said, it's just not going to work, and you might not take it forward. I guess just last, what's the time frame that you have to read all of these books? Then, and will you have to take time off to do it, or are you just going to slide it in and get up at 4 a.m. instead of 6 to start reading?
Exactly. I guess that I will adjust my habits accordingly. But we've got to get the long list selected by the end of the summer, and then and more or less the short list will be more or less chosen by us at the same time. But then that's I think October is my recollection, and then the choice gets announced kind of early around Remembrance Day every year. So. So it's a lot of reading. I've been joking that people who look for me in my office might find me reading this year. I might have to find all kinds of corners of time.
I guess I said last, but this is an added question from our director. It's a good one. Corey wonders if you're going to get authors trying to schmooze you to get
I hope so. It won't have any effect on me whatsoever.
Thank you very much for this. I think it's fantastic that they've chosen independent bookstore owners to be part of this. Appreciate you being on.
Thank you. Thanks very much for having me.
That is Chris Hall, co-owner of Winnipeg's McNally Robinson Booksellers.
Fake ads, fake stores, and even fake mistakes. Not long ago in France, Bounty candy bars were switched with Snicker wrappers on purpose.
Hey, ¿cómo se va?
At Snickers, we're not us when we're hungry.
The world of marketing has discovered there's money in fake-vertising on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on demand on CBC Listen.
9 minutes to 7 o'clock on your Tuesday morning. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for being with us on CBC's Information Radio, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. Well, we've already heard quite a bit of analysis, but it's important because our Prime Minister, Mark Carney, and his team will head to Beijing today. They're hoping to reset this relationship that's been strained for several years. China is an important part of the PM's efforts to diversify Canada's economic partnerships and reach his stated goal of doubling non-U.S. trade over the next decade. Ryan Tumulty is here to weigh in with his thoughts. He's a political reporter with the Toronto Star. Good morning.
Good morning.
So as we know, Ryan, it's been 8 years since the Prime Minister has traveled to Beijing. What, in your view, will be the biggest challenges for Mark Carney?
Yeah, I mean, this is a delicate relationship. We are not that far apart from a time when China had kidnapped two of our citizens, Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor. So he is certainly trying to create a trade relationship here, but some of those other issues are still in the background, and I think that is something that they're going to have to think about.
On the face of it might seem that just going means that his approach is different than former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's, but what's your sense of that?
I actually don't think their approach is different. I think the circumstances are different. Justin Trudeau tried to reach a trade deal with China early on in his tenure, and then the two Michaels were kidnapped, and that put an end to those sorts of conversations. I don't know that it's different. I think it's about different circumstances. Certainly, the circumstances that Mark Carney finds himself in is, a desire to boost non-U.S. trade, doubling it over the next decade. That's difficult to do, and even more difficult. It would be even more difficult to do if they were not talking to China, the second largest economy in the world.
Yesterday, this is very interesting. It was reported 2 Liberal MPs would be cutting a trip to Taiwan short. So what do we understand about why they're doing this, just so we get the context, and then we'll get into analysis?
Yeah, I mean, I think what they are doing is trying not to be a distraction to this trip the prime minister is on. China obviously takes Taiwan quite seriously. They don't see it as its own independent nation. They see it as a breakaway province. There is lots of tension over that. I think those two Liberal MPs probably saw the potential for them to become a distraction and decided it was best to sort of head home instead. I think there will be MPs going back to Taiwan. MPs, actually, Canadian MPs are invited to Taiwan quite regularly. It's one of the places that lots of MPs from all parties have traveled to at the invitation of the government there. So I suspect those trips will continue, but the timing of this one was bad, and so they came home.
Decided to cut their trip short, or were told to cut their trip short? I wonder how this is going to look to the rest of the world.
Yeah, I mean, that is a great question. I don't think those two MPs wanted to become, a news story at this moment. And I think China certainly would have raised it as a concern.
We've heard quite a bit from different interests here in Canada, notably the premiers. What is going to be the challenging of taking all of this discussion into Beijing? And I need to ask about canola, because here in Manitoba, the farmers are obviously across the prairies extremely concerned and really maybe not that hopeful that the EV thing is going to change.
Well, that's just it, right? So you've got different regions of the country with different incentives here, different concerns. Certainly, I think if you asked a lot of prairie canola farmers if you should allow entry of Chinese-made EVs if it means they can have access to the Chinese market for their canola, they take that deal in a heartbeat. But Ontario auto workers are very concerned about that potential. So, this isn't an easy balancing act. It's not going to be something that, well, there's nothing but winners. Someone's going to come out of this worse off. And I think that is going to be the challenge the government has.
How are the opposition Conservatives viewing this trip?
I would say they have been quieter than you'd expect on this trip. We haven't really seen any big criticism of the trip as in general. What I have heard from Pierre Poilievre is a desire to see this trip actually amount to something. He's really leveled the stakes at the prime minister, saying that you have to come back with a deal on some of these trade irritants. So that Canadian farmers or Canadian fishermen can start selling to China again.
We'll leave our discussion there this morning, Ryan. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Nice to see you. That is Ryan Tumulty with us, political reporter with the Toronto Star Live here on Information Radio. World Report coming up at 7 o'clock. Right now it is 4 minutes to, and then still ahead on our show after 7 o'clock. We're going to hear from the Winnipeg-based organization that alerted local police about a teenage boy that was allegedly sextorting a girl in Belgium. Also, in the next hour of the show, people in Calgary, as you've been hearing, were told to conserve water last month after another major water main break. We have similar pipes here in Winnipeg when you look at the age of our infrastructure in the city. So we wanted to ask and look at, could this happen in Winnipeg, this kind of a problem on that scale? Our civic affairs reporter, Cameron McLean, will be in the next hour with a special report on that. Right now, it is a time to check with Heather Wells on other news stories this morning in our province. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, as you mentioned there, a 15-year-old boy in Winnipeg facing charges in a sextortion case involving a teenage girl in Belgium. Police say the two had been in contact for about a year, and the girl was coerced into sending intimate images, which were then posted on social media without her consent. Suspended Manitoba PC board member Patrick Allard says party leaders are shooting themselves in the foot. The PC suspended Allard yesterday over a weekend Facebook post about U.S. immigration and customs enforcement, only days after an ICE agent shot and killed a woman in Minneapolis. Allard questions why a Conservative Party can be upset with a statement in support of border control. He says half the party's members are very conservative. We'll hear more Manitoba news coming up at 7:30.
Thanks. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Things are filthy outside right now, really wet. So wet, in fact, that I didn't even need to use the windshield washer fluid on my way to work because the spray from the cars, in front of us and in front of me and off the street were clearing off the window. But that's going to change. It's going to turn to ice later. So we've got a 60% chance of rain first, then flurries, then could change to freezing drizzle. What's going on here is the temperature is going to fall. So it's 4 degrees currently and cloudy. We're going to go to -8 by this afternoon. It's going to make for a messy, challenging day. Brandon mainly clear and 3 degrees, very similar forecast with gusty winds. Different up in Thompson where it's drifting snow and -20. Your temp is going to fall this afternoon to -22, but the light snow should end a little later this morning. If you need us on the morning commute, you can reach Corey at 788-3093 and let us know how conditions are looking for you anywhere in Manitoba, wherever your community or city may be, and we'll pass it along if there's a problem on the air. So far, so good. Right now, it's time for World Report coming up at the top of the clock. Stay with us on CBC 89.3 FM.
On the current.
To dream the impossible dream.
Setting a goal for yourself is hard enough, but some people commit their lives to striving for something that may never happen, like finding a mythical creature or solving the great scientific mystery, are we alone in the universe? The impossible goal coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland. And on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Canadian industry leaders have a lot of expectations for Prime Minister Mark Carney's trip to China. He is flying to Beijing later today to discuss trade and security in the face of U.S. tariffs. This visit may ease the ongoing trade war between Canada and China, but as Lisa Shing reports, it could also inflame frustrations in Washington.
It is very, very urgent. It's very, very timely for us.
Andre Harp, a farmer and chair of the Canadian Canola Growers Association, says his bottom line has taken a hit, caught in the middle of a trade war between China and Canada.
I have to look after my farm. I need those tariffs to go away because China was a good trading partner.
China, once the second largest market for Canadian canola exports, now effectively shutting it out. After Ottawa imposed 100% tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles 2 years ago, Beijing hit back with high tariffs on all canola products and a 25% tax on seafood and pork. Industry leaders hope Prime Minister Mark Carney's meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping this week will pave the way to removing the tariffs. René Roy is head of the board of the Canadian Pork Council.
There is not any good substitution market compared to China. China is such a large market.
But Brian Kingston, president of the Canadian Vehicle Manufacturers Association, is hoping Carney keeps the EV surtax in place to preserve Canada's auto industry and avoid angering President Donald Trump.
So we can't sacrifice our Canada-U.S. relationship simply to slightly increase our trade with China.
Some watchers argue that relationship is already broken and Carney needs to shore up other fronts and fast. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
The Prime Minister is making a short stop on his way to China. He will be in Prince Rupert meeting with coastal First Nations later today. They will discuss some big projects in the region. Prince Rupert is close to the proposed Silicium's liquefied natural gas facility. Ottawa has it listed for fast-tracked permits and approval. That facility would export 12 million tons of LNG per year, much of it to Asian markets. For the first time in days, Iranians are able to make phone calls to places outside the country. But internet and texting are still offline. That blackout is still being enforced by the Iranian regime. It's trying to suppress anti-government protests. One Iranian official told Reuters news agency about 2,000 people have been killed in the demonstrations, including security personnel. Crystal Gomansing has more.
Chants have turned to cries. Verified images of bodies lying in a morgue in Tehran and other cities tell the story of the consequences Iranians faced in order to protest. The fate of those arrested, potentially thousands, yet to come. At the height of the demonstrations, the regime threatened those daring to speak out with the death penalty.
I think one thing President Trump is very good at is always keeping all of his options on the table.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said diplomacy is one of the options. On Monday, U.S. President Donald Trump announced a 25% tariff on countries doing business with Iran. Today, we could learn what other steps he's willing to take.
The president has shown he's unafraid to use military options if and when he deems necessary, and nobody knows that better than Iran.
The United States virtual embassy is urging its citizens to leave Iran now. It recommends Americans avoid demonstrations, keep a low profile, and if it is safe to do so, consider leaving Iran by land to Armenia or Turkey. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz this morning challenged the staying power of the Iranian regime, saying he believes we are seeing it in its last days and weeks. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
Ukraine's two largest cities are assessing the damage this morning. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia attacked overnight with drones, ballistic and cruise missiles. Firefighters carry a man on a stretcher over piles of rubble in Kharkiv. Ukrainian officials say at least 4 people are dead. Several others are injured. Officials in Kharkiv say infrastructure was damaged. Ukraine's capital was also hit. Kyiv is reporting power outages. Ukraine's military says it has attacked a drone manufacturing plant in Russia's Rostov region, and parts of the facility are on fire. A new trial begins today in Paris for far-right politician Marine Le Pen. The leader of the National Rally is appealing her conviction for embezzling European Parliament funds. Le Pen was sentenced to 4 years in prison. She was also banned from running for office for 5 years. That makes her ineligible for next year's presidential election. Le Pen has called the decision a denial of democracy. People in the Squamish First Nation are still waiting to get out. The fly-in community in Northern Ontario has been without clean water for weeks and is under a state of emergency. A failure at the water treatment plant has forced officials to evacuate the area. As the CBC's Jonathan Mignot reports, local leaders say it's not happening fast enough.
We are worried about our community.
Tyson Wesley is the community's executive director. He says more than 700 people in Saskatchewan have been flown to other communities in Ontario. First it was to Timmins and Kapuskasing. Now Kingston is accepting evacuees, and Niagara Falls is next. But the government needs to get everyone out more quickly.
Flights are kind of still at the same rate, even though we've asked to expedite the evacuation.
Residents have been told not to consume tap water since January 4th. Now some people are showing signs of illness, but Wesley says stool sample tests are needed to determine the cause, and those aren't available.
I was told that they didn't even have those testing kits or those things to do stool samples prior to our declaration of emergency.
There are still roughly 1,600 people left in the community. Both the provincial and federal governments are working with their partners to get people out. Trent Gervais runs the Lumix group. It's helping with the evacuation to Kingston. He says they plan for people to stay over the long term.
If it's 2 weeks, that's awesome, but there's so much planning that needs to go into this that we start with 60 days.
Evacuations like these are a regular occurrence for people from Saskatchewan. The community floods every spring, at which time most people are flown out to other communities. Jonathan Mignot, CBC News, Sudbury.
The heads of several of the world's central banks are throwing their support behind Jerome Powell. The chair of the U.S. Federal Reserve has been threatened with criminal indictment by the Trump administration. He says it's over the bank's interest rate policies and its refusal to bend to pressure from U.S. President Donald Trump. For months, Trump has been demanding the central bank lower interest rates more quickly. Today, the chiefs of the European Central Bank, the Bank of England, and 9 other institutions issued a joint statement in solidarity with Powell. They write, "The independence of central banks is a cornerstone of financial and economic stability for the citizens they serve. A program in one Ontario city is aiming to break the cycle of human trafficking. Data from Statistics Canada shows police reported human trafficking has been up year over year since 2014. In Kingston, staff on the front lines say they keep seeing the same survivors return for help. Now they're embracing a different approach to help others reclaim their independence. Dan Takama reports.
More than 200 human trafficking survivors walked through the doors of victim services of Kingston and Frontenac last year alone. Executive Director Paula Laughlin says many were familiar faces.
The ballpark would be in and around about 75% of individuals coming back again to the service.
That statistic, a wake-up call, and the spark that led to a new approach called Ember.
We really try to empower survivors.
Anne-Marie Batten is an Indigenous health nurse. She says the goal is to go beyond helping in a moment of crisis by building people up for long-term success with mentors who can teach them skills like resume building or provide job experience.
If you do not put wraparound supports in place, there will be a trafficker there to fill the gap.
Statistics Canada says more than 5,000 incidents of human trafficking were reported by police across the country between 2014 and 2024, with the highest rates in Nova Scotia and Ontario. 93% of victims were women and girls, the majority under the age of 25.
It can start as young as like 10.
Annette Cadieux heads up the anti-human trafficking team in Kingston.
The purpose of Ember is to kind of create a community within a community.
She hopes the program catches on and breaks the trafficking cycle for survivors across the country. Dan Takama, CBC News, Kingston.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Welcome to Hour 2 of Information Radio on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. This is CBC. It's wet out there. But don't be fooled, the temperature will fall. Abby in with your weather locally in just a moment for Winnipeg. This hour on the program, we're going to talk about tough conversations. A local parent's going to weigh in. They've been having some of those tough talks with their kids about the news, specifically coming out of the States. How do you ease some of those anxieties when the news constantly does seem scary? Stay tuned. We'll find out what the kids have been asking. Also this hour on the program, could it happen here? Winnipeg's water pipes aren't that different from Calgary's, where, as you likely know, a major water main break has left people conserving water in that city. We're asking the question, should Winnipeggers be concerned when you look at our similarly aging infrastructure and water pipes? We'll talk to our civic affairs reporter about it at 10 to 8. Right now, Heather Wells is in with other news headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, the man accused of spray painting hate-related graffiti in Winnipeg last week has now been charged with 3 new offences, in addition to the 14 counts of mischief linked to the graffiti incidents on January 2nd. Oliver Aderhoff is charged with breaking into a house, failing to comply with a court order, and public mischief. We'll hear more on that story. And Manitoba will not order public servants back into the office full-time, bucking what 2 other provinces are doing. Premier Wapkanu confirms his government will continue allowing remote work for many public servants. He says that flexibility is good for families. We'll hear a reaction from the Union for Government Workers coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
Okay, why is your car so clean, Heather Wells? How is that even possible in this weather?
You know what? I went and got it cleaned yesterday afternoon after I finished all my running around, went through the car wash, and then drove very slowly.
I was going to say, you must have been like creeping along. Mine is filthy. And her car is white, everyone. Like, this is impossible. Also, Abby, yours is clean and yours is black.
Yeah, Heather has the formula. You just have to go slow and try to avoid any vehicle in front of you, or you will get sprayed.
Heather's gone now, but she's laughing off the air, and so are you laughing, because you both know you're like blanketing me. My car looks just filthy right now. This afternoon, I think I can get it washed because the temp temp will drop.
Yeah, the temp is definitely going to drop. This is a good time. If you don't want to get it dirty, you can just go in for that little clean, and you should get some conditions that will not get your car sprayed as you head back home. Though we're going to see those mild morning make that transition to more like rain showers, flurries. We should get that mix this morning. Current temperatures 4 degrees in Winnipeg. Temperatures will only fall from here. We fall to about -8 later this afternoon. Expect some gusty winds from the northwest later. Well, tonight it's still going to stay breezy, and then we'll see our lows around -23. The wind chill gets to be around -32 later tonight. Those are some sunshine on its way tomorrow. In the southern part of the province, we're looking at temperatures between 1 and 4 degrees. Also, that should tumble towards -8 later in this afternoon. For the northern part of the province, we're still seeing current temperatures near -20, and it's even going to drop further close to -27 for most of the regions as we travel towards Tuduli Lake this morning. Overall, we're seeing that sharp reality check. Mild morning quickly giving way to like freezing rain, freezing winds, flurries in the forecast, and temperatures dropping across board. Currently, we're seeing temperatures between 3 degrees and 4 degrees in Winnipeg, depending on where you are, and we fall to -8 by the afternoon period.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk, did you drive in this, or drive or bike or run? What'd you do?
I ran in this morning.
How was it for you?
My shoes are very wet this morning.
Yeah.
Yes, it was very sloppy, kind of salty kind of spots too. And that's probably the case on the roads for most people as well, in terms of the calls I got this morning. But if you do see something going on, it's been quiet otherwise. We'd love to get an update from folks. Maybe you've hit up the river trail too. I'm curious if that's kind of slushy too, what the ice might be like. Give me a call if you're walking, biking, driving. Would love to hear from you this morning. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, let's dig into something that was an aspect of Prime Minister Mark Carney's trip that was mentioned on the business report this morning. He will travel to China, but along the way, he's making this stop in northern BC to meet with coastal First Nations. So major projects, including a potential oil pipeline project to the BC coast, are likely to dominate those discussions. First Nations in that region, as you likely know as well, have expressed strong opposition to this plan, which was proposed in a memorandum of understanding between Ottawa and Alberta in November. For a closer look this morning at why these meetings are important and what to expect from them, the CBC spoke with Diamond Eisinger. She's a former special advisor of Canada-U.S. relations to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
It's a critical step to make sure that the projects that the federal government is hoping to achieve can actually get done. We saw rightful criticism back in November that the sequence of events had been perhaps in the wrong order in having conversations with Alberta and even the Premier of Saskatchewan before having meaningful conversations in and with British Columbia. So this is a convenient opportunity as part of the Prime Minister's travels to meet face-to-face with coastal First Nations, give them the engagement, the respect, the listening opportunity that they deserve to hear directly from them, and to also be accompanied by the minister responsible for these issues, who had committed at the end of last year to undertake this meeting as well. In my view, the position does remain very clear still, which is tremendous concern about the impacts of this pipeline on British Columbia, on the safety and quality of our water, for example. There's a tanker ban, which should and currently remains in place. The challenge of having a project move through Indigenous territories in British Columbia without their explicit consent is obviously a major one. We still, of course, though, do not have a route, a specific project proponent, or other key elements in place to actually move this forward. Something that I've seen acknowledged readily by the Alberta government as well. They are still pending all of this and acting as an interim proponent in the meantime. So perhaps opening up further dialogue, hearing more directly about specific concerns, and for the federal government to see ways in which they could move forward, perhaps incrementally, in getting some better understanding and agreement from key stakeholders in British Columbia.
That is Diamond Eisinger, a former special advisor of Canada-U.S. relations to Justin Trudeau. So Prime Minister Carney's on this 8-day trip. It includes stops in China, Qatar, and Davos, Switzerland as well, where he'll be for the World Economic Forum. First, though, he will be, as we just heard, in northern BC, discussing the possibility of a pipeline with coastal First Nations.
What is the word for that feeling you get when you're lying on the couch at home and you're watching the news and you start to think that the entire world has gone completely insane except for you? What is that word? I remember now. Yes, that word is Canadian.
Rick Mercer is back with a brand new comedy special. Join Rick Mercer, Sophie Buddle, Mace Galone, and Julie Kim in Stand Up for Canada. Catch all the laughs. Watch free on CBC Gem.
7:18 a.m. is the time. It is Tuesday morning, January 13th, and thanks for spending some time with us here at CBC. I suspect if you take the bus, you're pretty happy today just because standing out there is tolerable, which often it's not in January. So that's a little bit of bright good news here. I'm looking at our CBC studio windows, people walking around with just hands in pockets and no hats on. So enjoy the mild weather while you can. We still remain above zero at 3 degrees, as Abby was mentioning. Well, over the weekend, Neil Young weighed in on the political situation in the United States on his website. He wrote, quote, "While we're looking out the window, I see the biggest mess I've ever witnessed right here in the United States." It went on to say, "Donald Trump is destroying America bit by bit with his staff," unquote. And then he went on to denounce ICE. He said, quote, "Too many innocent people are dying. It's ice cold here in America," unquote. If you have been around long enough, then you might recall that over 55 years ago, Neil Young also famously denounced another American president, Richard Nixon. The song Ohio represented that. He responded in it to the deaths of 4 students at Kent State University in May 1970, killed when Ohio National Guardsmen fired into a crowd protesting the Vietnam War. We're going there this morning. From 1971, here's Neil Young, live at Massey Hall.
10 soldiers and Nixon coming, we're finally on our own. This summer I hear the drumming, 4 dead in Ohio. Gotta get down to it, soldiers are cutting us down. Should have been done long ago. What if you knew her and found her dead on the ground? How can you run when you know? Gotta get down to it, soldiers are cutting us down. Should have been done long ago. What if you knew her and found her dead on the ground? How can you run when you know? Soldiers and Nixon coming, we're finally on our own. This summer I hear the drumming, 4 dead in Ohio.
So we're listening to live music. You can hear the roaring applause there. That is a live version of Neil Young recorded at Massey Hall in Toronto in 1971. And that is his song, Ohio, which over 55 years ago came out. If you do the math, Neil Young denouncing American President Richard Nixon. That song responding to the deaths of 4 students at Kent State University in May 1970. They had been protesting the Vietnam War. They were killed when the Ohio National Guardsmen fired into a crowd. And Neil Young, as I mentioned, heading into that song, writing on Facebook, on his social media last night over the weekend, writing and weighing in on the political situation in the United States right now, as another woman in Minneapolis this time has been shot and killed by ICE agents there. 7:22 a.m. is the time. You're listening to CBC.
Are you responsible for the life of a tiny human? It's a lot, we know. Try a more zen approach with CBC Gem. It has your little one's best friends like Peppa Pig, Paw Patrol, Daniel Tiger, Dino Ranch, and more. Our shows are calm, fun, and educational. Best of all, it's totally free, and kids watch without any ads. Watch free on CBC Gem. And exhale.
CBC Gem is your ultimate sports destination. It's free, it's live and on demand, and it's everything you need for a summer full of edge-of-your-seat sports action. Experience exciting leagues featuring elite athletes in the Wanda Diamond League, the new Northern Super League with top women's international and Canadian players, and a whole lot more. Watch free on CBC Gem.
It is 7:24 a.m. and lots of free programming around town for the month of January. We were featuring some of the things going on at the Winnipeg Art Gallery. They're having new night programming, so check out their schedule, as well as some of the theaters around town. You want to check some of the small independent theaters that are doing some family programming, and they're playing family selections, and some of that you have to register, but is also free for showing. So check out some of the theaters throughout our exchange district in the city if you're looking for something to do. January can be a really tough month. Corey and I this morning were joking about writing a kind of an angry song about January. It's like she ain't pretty, she just looks that way, because it can be really nice, you know, out there with the snow and still some twinkling lights, and winter has its pluses, but it's just one of those months where everything just drags along for folks. So, and also we have some strange weather this month, of course. So we've had really cold temperatures and then swinging to this wild warm stuff, which ironically, we don't even get the beauty of January, because you look out the studio window this morning and it looks like that messiness of March. That temp's going to fall today as well, and it's going to be really windy. Next local news coming up at 7:30 in Winnipeg. Right now it is 7:25 a.m. on CBC, and that means it's time for morning sports. And Scott Regehr is on the line to update us. Hello, you.
Hi, just listening to you. Blue Monday's coming up, right? Next Monday, the bluest day of the year.
Yeah, they say when all the credit card statements come in.
Oh, gosh. Right.
From Christmas, holidays, holiday time.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, we get to play New Order, maybe, which would be a positive on
that
an
is
otherwise
a positive.
Tough day.
Ooh, were you a New Order and Depeche Mode guy back in the day?
You know I was. Of course I was.
You're my people.
All right.
Did you dance with your hands behind your back, ironically, with no facial expression?
Well, I guess you can tell by my laugh that maybe I did.
You're really my
just brought
people.
Me back in the day.
I bet I did. 1989.
There you go.
Let's talk about the Toronto Raptors. Their fans got a chance and a lovely way to say goodbye to one of their faves last night.
A standing ovation for the greatest Raptor of all time.
Sportsnet's call, Marcy, of Kyle Lowry entering the game late in the 76ers win over Toronto last night. It was almost certainly Lowry's final on-court appearance in the city, one where he played 9 seasons, helping the Raptors win their only championship in the process. Fittingly, the coach of that title-winning squad is the same guy who's leading Philadelphia these days, and Nick Nurse knew, with Toronto fans chanting, "We want Lowry," he had absolutely to oblige. Here is Lowry.
It's possibly the last game I ever play here. Who knows? But, I got an opportunity to experience probably one of the greatest basketball moments of my personal career. Just listen to the fans. I mean, that's why I always say, they are the greatest fans in the world to me. They've been supportive of me and my career, and a lot of the things I've accomplished in my career was in front of these fans, and, that's why, this place is so special to me.
Now, there's a chance that the Raptors and the 76ers will meet again in the playoffs this year, and that Lowry sees the floor again in Toronto, but that's pretty unlikely. And since this is Kyle's 20th season, and he's now really more of an assistant coach than a player, last night was almost surely his curtain call. That said, Lowry has made it clear he will sign a one-day contract with Toronto before he calls it quits, so that he can retire a member of the team and in the city with whom he developed such a strong bond.
Love that. Let's go to Olympic news. An American skeleton athlete is accusing Canada of sabotage.
Yeah, so that's Katie Eulander, a former world champion who's nearing the end of her career. She's been trying to accumulate enough qualification points to make it to Milano Cortina. Winning a race in Lake Placid, New York on Sunday helped with that. What didn't was the Canadian team pulling 4 of its 6 sliders from the competition. The diminished field means fewer Olympic qualification points were up for grabs, which means Eulander won't have enough to go to Italy.
Without the full points, my Olympic dream is likely crushed. I've been competing for 23 years, and I have never seen this happen in this way. If an athlete was going to be removed to prevent an advantage or to protect another athlete, it was done ahead of time in a manner that would allow for maneuvering and it to be fair. So that is where I feel it crosses the line.
For its part, Bobsleigh Canada Skeleton says it removed its athletes after 2 rounds of competition in Lake Placid because they're young, relatively new to the sport, and had performed poorly. Adding a little extra drama to this story, a Times of London report claims Canadian skeleton coach Joe Cecchini admitted that he pulled the racers to protect Canadian positions in the global ranking system. The sport's international governing body says it's now launching an investigation into the matter. So stay tuned. But the U.S.-Canada sporting rivalry ahead of the Olympics has just become that much more intriguing.
No doubt. Let's finish with footy, where Canada's next warm-up match for the World Cup could see them include an intriguing new player.
Yeah, attacking midfielder Marcelo Flores. He was born in Ontario. His dad's Mexican, and he did feature for Mexico in the past, but is eligible for a one-time switch in nationality where FIFA is concerned. Considering Flores came up through Arsenal's academy and was named by The Guardian at one point as one of the world's future great players, this could be quite a coup. So we'll see what happens with Marcelo Flores. He's training right now with Canada in Florida, where they're getting set for a friendly against Guatemala on Saturday. And I'll finish with a hockey note. The Jets hosting the Islanders tonight. A win would give Winnipeg a 3-game winning streak for the first time since November the 1st. Currently, the Jets have a higher chance of winning the first overall pick than winning the Cup, but they have been much better of late. Puck drop is at 7 o'clock.
All right, let's get that third in a row. Thank you, Scott.
You betcha.
That's Scott Reguera with Morning Sports Live on CBC. If you have anything to report in traffic, been pretty quiet morning, which is good because yesterday was a little bit strangely crazy. So Tuesday, we seem to have learned to give ourselves some space and slow down despite the warm, wild conditions that have started our day here. Call Corey if you have a problem, 788-3093. Your news is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is 3 degrees. We've lost one since the last hour, and that slide will just continue down to -8 this afternoon, and even colder, -23 is the overnight low tonight. There's a good shot of showers today, changing to flurries later this morning. Manitoba won't force its civil servants back to the office full-time. Premier Rob Canoe says he is satisfied with Manitoba requiring at least 3 days of in-office work for public servants. Ontario and Alberta are ordering workers back to the office full-time. The federal government looks to increase office work for its employees as well. Kyle Ross is at the MGEU, the union for many of Manitoba's civil servants.
People plan their lives around their work arrangements with their employers, right? They plan their home, their daycare, their drop-off for schools. All these things are planned around their work flexibility arrangements. So having the Premier say we're not going to change it, I think it really gives them some comfort in what's coming in the future.
30% of Manitoba's civil servants work remotely at least once a month. The man accused of spray painting hate-related graffiti in Winnipeg last week has now been charged with 3 new offenses, in addition to the 14 counts of mischief linked to the graffiti incidents of January 2nd. Oliver Aderhoff is charged with breaking into a house, failing to comply with a court order, and public mischief. Court records show the new alleged offenses took place Friday, just a day after he was arrested in connection with graffiti on a synagogue, a mosque, a high school, and some homes and vehicles. After his arrest, Aderhoff was released on a promise to appear in court. Police did not say if he remains in custody following these latest charges. A 15-year-old boy in Winnipeg faces charges in a sextortion case involving a teenage girl in Belgium. Winnipeg police say the two had been in contact for about a year, and the girl was coerced into sending intimate images. The images were then posted on social media without her consent. Police say the boy demanded the girl send money to make him stop uploading those images. She contacted Belgian police. The Canadian Centre for Child Protection alerted Winnipeg police about this case back in October. We're going to have more on this story following this newscast right here on Information Radio. Suspended Manitoba PC board member Patrick Allard says party leaders are shooting themselves in the foot. The PC suspended Allard from the party for good. Prime Minister Mark Carney leaves for China today, the first trip by a Canadian Prime Minister since 2017. Canada hopes for a reset in the frosty relationship. Veena Najibullah is with the Asia Pacific Foundation.
This is a high-stakes visit, and it will be real tests for Prime Minister Carney's pragmatic foreign policy. Success will depend on how he's able to strike a difficult balance between seizing economic opportunities while at the same time protecting Canada's economic interests and national security. He will also have to manage some real difficulties when it comes to domestic politics, interests from Saskatchewan's canola versus the auto sector in Ontario.
Carney will meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping on this trip. You can hear more national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. Several people have received notices of alleged misconduct as part of the Winnipeg Police Headquarters inquiry. An interim report from the inquiry's commissioner, Garth Smorang, says 3 people who got notices can't be forced to testify because they live outside the province. Those people were not named in the report. Between February and June, 34 witnesses are expected to testify at the public hearings looking into the procurement and construction of the city's police headquarters. Some are speaking voluntarily, while others are under subpoena. 11 expert witnesses will also testify. The first phase of those hearings is scheduled to start next month in Winnipeg. Well, fire damage and a milder winter are making things difficult for groups in Flin Flon hoping to open winter trails. Hundreds of kilometers were damaged in last summer's wildfires. And outside of one winter storm, there hasn't been much snow in Flin Flon to keep those trails covered. Flin Flon Ski Club President Dean Grove says burned trees are a hazard.
We've had to take a lot of trees out that have fallen across the trail. We anticipate we're going to have a lot more that are going to fall down after because they've had the roots burned, but they're still standing.
Local snowshoe and snowmobile clubs have also reported burned buildings and bridges. You can find more news updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Heather Wells in our news department live this morning. It is 7:36 a.m. and there is Mr. Abby Adeyemi with our regional details and weather.
A mild morning in the city, but we should see that change as we get into the afternoon in the southern part of the province. Winnipeg, right now, we're looking at 3 degrees outside, mostly cloudy. You can expect a chance of rain showers switching over to flurries as you get into the morning, and you think the flurries would be enough, but then we'll see some freezing rain also come with that as you get into the afternoon, along with some gusty northwest winds pushing temperatures down to -8 by the afternoon time. Don't expect some clear skies overnight. It's going to get cold as we get overnight. Similar conditions we're seeing in the Pembina Valley region. We're seeing temperatures around 3 degrees, 4 degrees, depending on where you are. Temperatures will also fall to about -5 by the afternoon period. A good chance of flurries and freezing rain in the forecast as well. For the Westman region, tracking it from Brandon towards Nipawin this morning, we're looking at 3 degrees also there. A good chance of rain or snow might come your way this morning as we see temperatures fall to -5 under breezy conditions. In the Parkland region, we're tracking 4 degrees around Dauphin this morning. Cloudy with rain changing to snow today as temperatures will tumble to -8 by the afternoon. In the Interlake region, Gimli sitting at 1 degree at this time, cloudy there. A good chance of flurries also in the forecast and a risk of freezing a drizzle before you see your temperature similar to Winnipeg fall to -8 later. In the Flin Flon surrounding communities, we're looking at that cold start. Temperatures between -12 and -14 at this time. Some light snow earlier, still falling in some parts. That should end as you get get into the morning, with temperatures falling to minus 15 later. Thompson, we're still seeing those drifting snow there in that part of the province. Current temperatures around minus 20. That should take us to about a minus 22 later in the day. But the wind chill factored in, there's a risk of frostbite. It feels like minus 32 there. Churchill, minus 23. Your high is minus 21 later, though the wind chill close to minus 40 throughout the day. Winnipeg right now, it's 3 degrees and we drop to minus 8 later.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk is in. So far, it's been pretty quiet.
Pretty quiet, though I imagine in 24 hours, it's going to be not so quiet
On the
tomorrow.
commute?
When
Yeah.
things are going to get slippery tomorrow as it gets cold and after everything melted here. So just careful as the things, cool down today. But if you do see something going on right now, if you're walking your bike and you're driving, give me a call. That number 204-788-3093.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, as Heather mentioned, we do have more in a story that she started to tell us about in our news this morning. Police arrested a 15-year-old Winnipeg boy who's now facing charges related to the sexploitation of a teenage girl in Belgium. Police say both teens had been in contact for about a year, and during that time, the boy allegedly coerced the girl into sending him intimate images. Then police say he uploaded those images online and spent 2 months demanding the girl pay him to stop. She eventually went to police in Belgium, who helped get the images removed. The Canadian Centre for Child Protection alerted the Winnipeg Police Internet Child Exploitation Unit about the case in October. Jacques Marcoux is Director of Research and Analytics for the Centre for Child Protection, which is based here in Winnipeg, and he joins us via Zoom. Hi there, Jacques.
Hi, Marcy.
So how did your organization first become aware of this case?
Well, we received a tip from someone from abroad, and this is something that happens several thousands of times per year. We receive thousands of tips from Canadians, kids, families, but also we get tips from people from abroad. In some cases, people might just be Googling for help and they come across our website not recognizing that we're a Canadian hotline, and we'll do what we can to support those kids. In some cases, it's because the person intended to reach out to us, because in this case, it sounds like the victim was aware that the offender was likely a Canadian, which is probably why they reached out to us. And then obviously we did our work of looking through the report and then forwarding it on to law enforcement.
How does this case compare to other sextortion crimes you've seen? Where do you see similarities and I guess critically differences?
Yeah, what happened here strikes me as more of in quotes, and I use the term carefully, like traditional sextortion. And what I mean by that is that over the past 3 or 4 years, we've seen a surge of what we call financial sextortion, which has been impacting essentially almost entirely boys. But the difference here is that when it happens to boys, the motivation of the offender tends to be more related to not acquiring sexual images or coercion of the person, but more for financial gain. So it's a quick threat using the intimate images of the victim to then blackmail them for money. In the case of girls, like in this case, you don't necessarily get that sense because this is something that played out over weeks and months and like you said, even possibly up to a year. With boys, it happens over hours and days. With girls, it often goes on for a long period of time. And in this case, it looks like the offender was trying to essentially exploit this victim to get more intimate images.
The victim and the offender are also close in age. How common is that becoming?
Well, it depends what type of crime you're looking at. So in the case of sextortion, it can vary a lot. So with boys, for example, a lot of the offenders are themselves young in age, and they're often part of organized crime groups like gangs. And these are often young children recruited by these gangs to do this. And so you often have offenders along the Ivory Coast who are being arrested as part of these organized crime gangs, and they're themselves teenagers or young adults. In this case, in particular, I mean, this does happen. We do know that when it comes to non-consensual intimate distribution online, in most cases, especially when it happens to kids, the offenders themselves are roughly the same age as the victim. They tend to also be minors, but it's often because there's a known relationship between those victims. So with non-consensual intimate images, oftentimes the offender is known to the victim or is an acquaintance. And so It's not surprising to me. This does happen. We often frame child sexual abuse online in the context of adults versus kids, but it also can be people who are close in age.
I just want to go back to an earlier point and ask you if we understand anything about why. When you were saying usually this kind of sextortion with a girl would play out in a longer time space, and over a boy it can be maybe hours or days. Do we have any understanding about why that difference exists?
This is the part where I speculate a bit. So with boys, the objective, the offenders often don't have a sexual interest in the victim. They trick them into sending nude images by pretending to themselves be, perhaps like someone in their community who's interested in a romantic relationship. And once those images are shared, they then turn around and use those images as a lever to blackmail the person. But the goal is money. And oftentimes boys fall for this really quickly and they fall head over heels and then they get caught up. With girls, the motivation isn't to do a quick hit and run and then run off with the money. The goal is often to hold this person captive for a long period of time and to continue to extract and coerce and try and get more imagery of the victim. Why there's that gender difference, we'd have to do some more speculation. I'm sure there's more research about that. But when it comes to this, and usually it would be men or boys extorting women and girls. In those cases, it tends to play out over a long period of time. It reminds me a little bit, and I think you're probably familiar with this case as well, of the Amanda Todd case. The Amanda Todd case from over a decade ago, very similar situation where she was kind of held captive in this digital space by an offender in a different country for a long period of time. And this is very similar how it played out over a very long period of time.
You describe online sextortion right now as a crisis, Jacques. Can you tell us by the numbers why you use that word?
Yeah, this is something that has exploded in terms of the amount of reports that we receive since just after COVID. We have received about 12,000 reports over the past 4 or so years related to sextortion, both financial sextortion and more traditional sextortion involving sexual imagery. It is something we've been yelling from the rooftops, and it's something that I think your listeners should know, parents should know, happens on mainstream platforms. These things don't usually play out in the dark corners of the internet. They play out on the platforms that your kids have on their phones. In this specific case in Winnipeg, it played out on Discord, TikTok, and Snapchat. And those platforms repeatedly are among the most cited platforms we see in our reports.
How difficult then is it to remove these images once they've been posted? What do we understand about the latest, that can help?
So timing is everything, right? As soon as things are online, the faster you can act to get them down, the better your chances are that it won't have spread. As you know, once something's online or on Twitter or on any other platform, it can get shared, it can get downloaded. So it can be really difficult to pull things back once it's out there. So time is of the essence. If you are a kid who has this happen, you can come into cybertip.ca or Need Help Now, and we can try and help guide you through this process, and even ourselves go after the platforms to try and get some of the images removed. Of course, you can also try and go directly to the platform and ask that they remove it. A lot of kids don't have a lot of luck doing that, and it's not until they escalate things where the platforms will start to help. That's a really unfortunate thing, and it's something that also points to the need for more guardrails around how these online services operate within our country, which if you want, I can get into a longer conversation about the desperate need we have for basic regulation that imposes duties of care onto these platforms as well.
I think that's a full interview, Jacques.
It is.
We will have to have you back for that. But thank you for walking through the details of what happened here. Really valuable information you've shared today. Thank you.
Not a problem. Thank you, Marcy.
Jacques Marcoux with us live, Director of Research and Analytics for the Canadian Centre for Child Protection here in Winnipeg.
The CBC News app delivers the answers you want to know and need to know.
What an extraordinary scene.
The breaking stories that shape your world. Reporting from the scene onto your screens.
Dropping the 8 now. We're just approaching Gaza.
Your source for mobile news.
Delivered when you want, where you want.
This situation has changed very quickly.
The CBC News app. Download for free.
Bit of music now on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and YouTube to brighten up your morning. Here, a wet Tuesday morning, temperature is going to fall. This is Winnipeg and her latest. Winnipeg's Fontaine from her latest album, Good Buddy, just released in 2025 in December. This is Home Right Here.
Running down to the well, through the forests and the fields, with my cousins at my heels. In the garden with my mom, pulling weeds all day long, picking sweetgrass from the lawn. I wonder when I will be back again. I feel at home right here. I wonder when I will be back again. I feel at home right here. Rainbow prisms down the hall, sparkles from a disco ball, soulmates written on the wall. Walking down Main with you, sipping coffee with a view, watch the people passing through. I wonder when I will be back again. I feel at home right here. I wonder when I will be back again. I feel at home right here. At home right here. At home right here. Spinning records all night long in Jimmy's place behind the house. Someone's passed out on the couch. Lights of yellow, red, and blue, sitting talking in the booth. I love coming home to you, to you. I wonder when I will be back again. I feel at home right here. I wonder when I will be back again. I feel at home right here. At home right here. At home right here. I wonder
Manitoba-based singer-songwriter Fontaine and Home Right Here on 89.3 FM. Well, speaking of home, new statistics show that people continue to not want to make Manitoba home. They're leaving for other provinces. So, does the next generation want to build a life here? And if not, why not? That's the question for our Gen Z panel coming up after 8. You're on Information Radio this morning on 89.3, and next on the show, Calgary is dealing with the fallout from a major water main break that flooded streets and forced severe water restrictions late last month. Here is Siegfried Kiefer. He's chair of the Bear Paw Feeder Main Review Panel, which looked into how Calgary got into this situation.
This is an emergency situation. Calgarians, we all don't need to go to sleep at night thinking, well, maybe tomorrow I won't be able to have my shower because the pipe has failed again. And you will find in our report that we do a very good job of tracing back over 20 years of history in terms of what has caused us to arrive at a place with infrastructure that is not adequately resilient enough to give reliable service to Calgarians.
So why are we listening to this? Well, it has raised questions across the country about aging underground infrastructure, including here in Winnipeg. Underneath our streets, there are many pipes of the same age and material like the one that broke in Calgary. So could it happen here is the question we're seeking to answer. CBC's Cameron McLean is our civic affairs reporter. He's been digging into how vulnerable our water system is in Winnipeg, and he's in studio. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
So let's start with Calgary just to further understand what went wrong there.
Well, I think most people have
heard of a water main breaking. Maybe you've seen one, a flooded street. Those are usually smaller pipes, about half a foot in diameter, and they carry water directly to users, homes and businesses. The break that happened in Calgary was a feeder main. These are big pipes, often sometimes several feet wide. They carry water from the treatment plant to neighborhoods. And the Bears Paw feeder main in northwest Calgary, that's a 6-foot wide pipe. And in late December, it broke, flooding streets and forcing the city to bring in severe water restrictions. The same pipe also failed back in 2024, and the repairs then took months. After that first break, the city set up an independent review panel to look into what went wrong and whether it could happen again.
So what did that review panel conclude?
Well, it found that Calgary had known about problems with this type of pipe since about 2004. Inspections and upgrades were repeatedly deferred. Siegfried Kiefer, the chair of the panel who we heard from in the intro, he described this as a system-level failure. Not one bad decision, but decades of many decisions leading to underinvestment in resilience. Many cities across Canada have installed the same kind of pipe decades ago, including Winnipeg.
So how worried should we be?
Well, we do have similar types of pipes, 1970s vintage, pre-stressed concrete cylinder pipes. And Winnipeg has about 120 kilometers of these under our streets, and these are mostly what our feeder mains are made of. But Winnipeg city officials and councillors argue there's some important differences between Winnipeg and Calgary. Winnipeg adopted stricter construction standards decades ago, and we never relaxed those standards when industry practices changed.
So walk us through some of those differences.
Well, a lot of it comes down to what the pipe itself is made of and what surrounds it. These feeder mains, they're made from pre-stressed concrete, which is wrapped around steel wire. And over time, corrosion in the soil can damage those wires and weaken the pipe. And that's what happened in Calgary. The review found that corrosion played a big role. Winnipeg officials say our pipes were built to stricter standards and with extra mortar protection. And the city's soil, actually, we have really thick clay soil in Winnipeg, and that actually helps slow the movement of chemicals that penetrate the concrete and corrode damage the steel. There's also an issue of scale. Calgary, their pipe, as I mentioned, is 6 feet wide, and Winnipeg's pipes are generally smaller and they're more widely distributed. Lastly, Winnipeg's system is highly interconnected, which means that water can be turned off and rerouted if one feeder main is broken, and it can be taken out of service.
Interesting. And that clay soil is good for something, at least. It's
helping us in one way.
If a feeder main did, though, fail here, what actually would happen then?
Well, Tim Shanks, the director of water and waste for the city of Winnipeg, he says redundancy is the key difference. Because the system is interconnected, they say most of the feeder mains can be shut down without causing major drops in water pressure citywide. The message from the city is that a failure would be disruptive, but not catastrophic in the way that Calgary's was. That said, Winnipeg has had serious pipe breaks in the past. You might remember in 2024, a sewage pipe crossing beneath the Red River at the Fort Garry Bridge broke. That pipe also dated back to the 1970s, but importantly, it was made from a different material, a type of high-density plastic. In that case, crews actually had identified problems with the pipe during routine inspections, and they were actually in the process of trying to fix that when the pipe failed.
Now, you said the chair of Calgary's review panel cited decades of investments in resilience when it came to Calgary's water supply. So I'm just curious why people there didn't see this coming.
Well, experts say underground infrastructure is hard to sell politically because people don't see it until it fails. It doesn't get as much attention as maybe a new bus line. But raising water rates to replace pipes also isn't popular, even if it prevents much bigger problems down the line. That tension is kind of at the heart of what happened in Calgary. Here's Carrie Black. She's a civil engineering professor at the University of Calgary.
No one's elected on putting in a new pipe. No one's elected on making sure that your water costs a bit more so that we can make sure we can maintain it.
And according to the City of Winnipeg, our infrastructure deficit, meaning the total cost of all of the unfunded capital projects from 2024 to 2023, was about $8 billion. That includes aging roads and bridges, sewers and facilities that need upgrading, and water mains. Ross Eady, the chair of Winnipeg's Water and Waste Committee, said he took some offense to the idea that the city has avoided those tough decisions. He points to the recent increases in the city's sewer rate, which is meant to fund the upgrades to the North End sewage treatment plant. He says he and Mayor Scott Gillingham get angry messages from residents about this, so he argues city officials are paying the political price.
All right, Cameron, we'll point people to read your online piece. Thank you for this.
Thank you very much.
Cameron McLean is our civic affairs reporter. Now your CBC headlines.
Good morning. Well, several people have received notices of alleged misconduct as part of the Winnipeg Police Headquarters inquiry. An interim report from the Inquiries Commission says 3 people who received notices can't be forced to testify because they live out of province. A man accused of spray painting hate-related graffiti in Winnipeg last week has now been charged with 3 new offenses, in addition to the 14 counts of mischief linked to those graffiti incidents. We'll have more details coming up in our next local news at 8:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Coming up after 8 o'clock, our Gen Z panel tackles this question. Is Manitoba a place that you want to stay after you graduate? We're going to look at statistics that suggest people are leaving. It is 3 minutes to 8 o'clock. It is 3 degrees in Winnipeg, and our temperature is going to fall to about 8. Could be slippery late this afternoon.
CBC Nonfiction Prize is one of the most prestigious writing prizes for original unpublished works in Canada, and it's now open. Up for grabs, cash prizes from the Canada Council for the Arts, a 2-week writing residency at the Banff Centre for Arts and Creativity, and your work published on CBC Books. Contest closes March 1st. The 2026 CBC Nonfiction Prize. For rules and more, go to cbcbooks.ca. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
Setting a goal for yourself is hard enough, but some people commit their lives to striving for something that may never happen, like finding a mythical creature or solving the great scientific mystery, are we alone in the universe? The impossible goal coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe will be joining Prime Minister Mark Carney in Beijing. The Prime Minister flies to China today. Canada is re-engaging with the superpower at a time when U.S. tariffs are slamming some Canadian industries. But Saskatchewan is feeling the pain of Chinese tariffs on canola products. And as Tom Perry reports, some experts are urging caution.
I think the key is, in our case, to go into this relationship with clear eyes.
To Richard Fadden, former director of the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, it makes sense for Canada to try to rebuild relations with China, an economic giant. But he says Canadian officials need to keep in mind Beijing's track record.
Yes, we want to do things on the economic, the trade, and a few other sectors, but we want to make it clear to the Chinese that, foreign interference and espionage is not on.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is traveling to Beijing looking to reset the Canada-China relationship. Ties between the two countries frayed under former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, with China detaining 2 Canadians, Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, and with Beijing accused of interfering in Canadian politics and seeking to intimidate members of the Chinese-Canadian community. Despite that, China remains an important market for Canadian business. And Graham Shantz, president of the Canada-China Business Council, says there's huge potential for growth.
We think we're underperforming compared to some of our competitors, for example, Australia, the U.S., and others, and we think we can do better.
While relations between Canada and China are warming, Beijing continues to tariff Canadian canola, pork, and seafood, retaliation over Canada's 100% levy on Chinese electric vehicles, a topic that's expected to be raised when the Prime Minister sits down with Chinese leaders. Tom Perry, CBC News, Ottawa.
The Prime Minister is making a pit stop in northern BC en route to China, and he will be using the time in Prince Rupert to meet with the leaders of coastal First Nations. Let's bring in Janice McGregor from our Parliamentary Bureau. And Janice, what will you be watching for?
Marcia, two urgent concerns intersect at this meeting. The Carney government's push to position Canada as a safe and reliable energy supplier in the wake of rapidly shifting international developments, and First Nations anxieties about how the federal government's agenda of building, diversifying trade, growing the economy treats consultation with them as a bit of an afterthought, not a prior legal requirement. Coastal First Nations have wanted the Prime Minister to come to their territory for nation-to-nation conversations for months. Tensions spiked when the Prime Minister went ahead, signed a memorandum of understanding with Alberta Premier Daniel Smith about the conditions required to build a bitumen pipeline to BC's coast without consulting them first. Natural Resources Minister Tim Hodgson's subsequent quip that he could just talk to Indigenous leaders over Zoom didn't help. These First Nations have made their objections to oil tanker traffic on their coast explicitly clear. They've warned they're prepared to pull their support for other natural gas, critical mineral projects, hydroelectric developments if they aren't heard. Hodgson and Carney will be joined today by Housing and Infrastructure Minister Gregor Robertson and Vancouver MP Wade Grant, who's a former Musqueam First Nation band councillor. The agenda suggests a 2 to 3 hour meeting and then a photo op with a local business. By early afternoon, Carney will carry on his way to China to sign perhaps new agreements, which could include a push for the Chinese to purchase more and invest more in Canadian energy. Coastal First Nations leaders are expected to speak with reporters after their meeting. We'll see if this stop along the Prime Minister's way meets their expectations.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa. The United Nations Human Rights Office is urging the Iranian government to respect the rights of its people. Jeremy Lawrence is a UN spokesperson.
This cycle of horrific violence cannot continue. The Iranian people and their demands for fairness, equality, and justice must be heard.
The UN agency says hundreds have been killed and thousands arrested so far, but one Iranian official told Reuters that 2,000 people have been killed. That official blamed terrorists for the deaths. Iran's internet has been shut down for more than 100 hours now, but for the first time in days, authorities are allowing the public to make phone calls abroad. Ukraine's two largest cities are assessing the damage this morning. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia attacked overnight with drones, ballistic and cruise missiles. Firefighters carry a man on a stretcher over piles of rubble in Kharkiv, and Ukrainian officials say at least 4 people are dead. Several others were injured. Officials in Kharkiv say infrastructure was damaged. Ukraine's capital was also hit. Kyiv is reporting power outages. Ukraine's military says it has attacked a drone manufacturing plant in Russia's Rostov region. Parts of the facility are on fire. Edmonton's transit line is now one of the most dangerous in the country. A CBC investigation is revealing rising rates of violence on public transit across Canada. Nicholas Frew teamed up with our visual investigations team to find out who's behind many of the incidents.
It was pretty terrifying. I didn't want to get on the train for a while.
Ben Mazer boarded the Edmonton LRT one day in November 2023. He walked off at the next stop with a concussion, broken nose, and smashed eyeglasses.
I drive more now.
Statistics Canada data shows transit-related violence is up across the country, and experts say that coincides with a rise in social disorder since the pandemic. But in the Edmonton metro area, transit violence has nearly tripled. Court records show Mazer's assailant was a repeat offender with a criminal history spanning decades. Police say about a fifth of offenders caused nearly half the crime on Edmonton Transit. David Cooper, a public transportation consultant, says it's not just Edmonton.
What was very eye-opening to me with, going out with police in several cities and going out with frontline staff is that the police know who they are.
When CBC was with Edmonton police on a transit patrol, 3 people were arrested in just 20 minutes. 2 of them were already banned from using transit.
Well, I don't think it's solely a policing solution.
Acting Staff Sergeant Scott Nolt of the EPS's Crime Suppression Branch said officers look for frequent flyers. Nolt feels a holistic solution is needed, including stricter court conditions on repeat offenders. Work on that is already underway in Ottawa, where Bill C-14 is progressing through the House of Commons. If the bill passes, bail would be harder to get, especially for repeat and violent offenders, and violent crimes would get stricter sentences. In an email, Justice Minister Sean Fraser called the proposed changes sweeping. Nicholas Frew, CBC News, Edmonton.
The BBC is asking a Florida court to dismiss a defamation lawsuit filed by U.S. President Donald Trump. The British broadcaster is being sued over the way it edited a speech Trump made leading up to the January 6 Capitol riots 5 years ago. The BBC has apologized to Trump, but it says he failed to prove that it published the documentary with actual malice, a requirement for a case of defamation. Trump is seeking a total of $10 billion in damage. Geologists are confirming a decades-old hypothesis with the help of an earthquake on the Alaska-Yukon border. They say the quake revealed a hidden fault line under glaciers. Katrin Pilkington has the story from Whitehorse.
A helicopter full of researchers is scouring a remote mountain region in southwest Yukon, looking for avalanches and landslides, evidence of a magnitude 7 earthquake that struck in this area on December 6th. Here's Jan Detmer with the Yukon Geological Survey.
This is the largest on-land earthquake in Canada in the last 75 years, so this is a really special event.
The plate activity is actively building mountains in the area. It's also special for another reason. It's shedding new light on a blind spot for seismologists about the area where the Pacific and North American tectonic plates converge. Usually it's difficult to study as it's covered by thick glaciers.
It had been hypothesized since the 1960s, but we haven't been able to directly observe it, and now we can.
Southern Yukon is still feeling aftershocks far from more populated parts of the region like Whitehorse or Anchorage, Alaska.
A magnitude 7 in other parts of the world can kill 10,000 people. The land that actually moved, the rupture was probably on the order of 50 to 100 kilometers long.
That's Michael West, state seismologist and research professor at the Alaska Earthquake Center.
There are researchers all around the world investigating this earthquake in different ways.
West says work is already underway to understand what's happening underground and what dangers it could present to nearby communities. Katrin Pilkington, CBC News, Whitehorse.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, everyone. We have another day that feels more like March than January. It sure is slushy out there, and you're going to need a lot of windshield washer fluid. But our temperature is going to fall, making it tricky later. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. We have morning headlines with Heather Wells coming up live for you on this Tuesday, January 13th in just a moment. And then we're going to talk with our Gen Z panel about Manitoba. And that is because some of the latest statistics show that people are leaving our province. They continue to leave for other provinces. So we're going to ask whether or not this place is somewhere Gen Zs want to stay after they graduate. So we have our panel in studio to discuss that question in just a moment. Stay with us. You're with 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app, or maybe you're watching on YouTube. Time right now, as I mentioned, for those headlines with Heather Wells. Let's find out what's developing this morning. Hi there.
Good morning. Well, the director of the Manitoba Institute to Combat Anti-Semitism says it's distressing to learn another swastika has been found at Calvin High School. This time the symbol was drawn inside the locker of a Jewish student. Belle Jarneski at the Institute says this needs to be taken seriously. She thinks the school should have an assembly as soon as possible to address anti-Semitism. A 15-year-old boy in Winnipeg faces charges in a sextortion case involving a teenage girl in Belgium. Winnipeg police say the two had been in contact for about a year, and the girl was coerced into sending intimate images. We'll hear what happened next in our next local news coming up at 8:30.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Let's get into this forecast now. Abby, what's up?
Yeah, we're in for that transition, Marcy. That mild morning we've been enjoying in the southern part of the province is definitely going to be giving way to more like a cold front sweeping in, while the north still remains locked in a deep freeze, and we're seeing wind chills and the values close to minus 40s this morning as you travel towards Tuduli Lake. For Winnipeg, 3 degrees right now, cloudy outside. We do have that good chance of rain showers that's going to transition to some flurries by the mid-morning period, and we'll then see our temperatures drop to about minus 8 this afternoon. This is due to the gusty northwest winds that will be moving in. Then that will be followed by some clear conditions overnight, but we'll see temperatures also drop sharply to about 23 to minus 25. Across the southern part of the province, we're seeing morning temperatures hovering near 4 degrees this morning, but most of the regions will see that temperature quickly fall towards minus 8 as the rain turns to flurries and those gusty winds comes from the northwest. Up north, different story. Minus 20s to minus 28. That's what we're seeing up there, and things won't really improve much. So it's more like that sharp midday cool will definitely take hold as we get into the midday period and the afternoon for most of the province this morning. Winnipeg right now, 3 degrees. The rain showers on its way. That will change to flurries, and we'll see temperatures crash to minus 8 with the gusty winds moving in sometime this afternoon.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Abby Adiyemi. Now, traffic pretty good. Call Corey if you have a problem. We actually haven't had an active busy morning on that commuter line, but you can call us with any updates at 204-788-3093. Well, as I mentioned, over 1.5 million people make up the province of Manitoba, but we still need that number to grow if we want to continue to prosper. And new statistics show that people continue to leave for other provinces. Between October 2024 and September 2025, our net interprovincial migration was negative 3,639 people, according to the Manitoba Bureau of Statistics. So what does that mean? Well, it means more people left Manitoba for other provinces than we attracted. The vast majority of those people we know went to Alberta or to BC. Today, we have our Gen Z panel in studio to answer the question, is Manitoba a place that young people want to stay? Sam Lamont is with us, 22 years old, studying history and economics. Good morning.
Good morning.
Also with us this morning, Victoria Romero, 23 years old, studying political science. Good morning.
Thank you for having me. Morning.
And Kyler Zanelli is back, 22-year-old business student. Good morning.
Good morning.
So all three of you panelists are students at the University of Manitoba, I should mention. And we always like to say if we want to keep people, we want to keep young people in the province. So after you graduate, Sam, do you see yourself staying or leaving here?
Yeah, so I certainly plan to stay for a few years after I graduate. At the least it would be for kind of cost of living expenses. I'm fortunate that I can live home, and I really appreciate having more energy to work on school or get other jobs, and kind of being able to reinvest that into myself rather than having to kind of cover more overhead expenses. So for a few years, I'd like to stay for sure. And then I'm a little undecided if I'd want to move out or not, but I'd maybe even be leaning towards that.
And leaning towards it because of the expense, obviously not because of the expenses, rather, but leaning towards it, why? What would be attractive to you, and where would you think of?
Mm-hmm. So certainly a lot of it would just be because I'd like to have a diverse range of experiences. I've lived in a few different places already, and I'd like to live in more places to kind of see more of the world and learn more about myself. So I think that's kind of an intrinsic thing, that there's nothing really that Manitoba could do to want me not to have experienced that. But the real question would then be, what could bring me back here to want to kind of stay and kind of put roots down in Manitoba.
So hold that thought, because we'll get back to you and get that answer. Yeah. Victoria, would you staying or going after grad? What do you see your future being?
Well, I'm Winnipeg born and raised. I've lived here my whole life. So I definitely think I'm in need of some time away. But I always see myself coming back here, whether that be to start a family or to, kind of establish a professional career. I kind of see my home base as always being Winnipeg and Manitoba.
Okay, so you have family roots pulling you, you have economic things, realities keeping you here. Kyler, education, specifically a master's program, is a reason why you feel some people are leaving the province, I understand. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I think some people are looking for a good education, and some people aren't finding it, or some people aren't even getting the opportunity to have it. I think it's a major thing, because I think it admirable to chase something to improve yourself. I think everyone could say such a thing. And that's why people are leaving. They're not getting what they want, or they're not getting what they need.
So people can leave are leaving because the programs could be better at other universities.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Victoria, I know that you have a career path after university. I believe you want to be a lawyer. So do you feel you can build that career in Manitoba? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I definitely plan to pursue higher education, like in the form of a Juris Doctor, and then also eventually a master's and a PhD. So I would hope, eventually one of these degrees may come from another institution, but I think the University of Manitoba is adequate. But I am really passionate about, because I love Manitoba, a lot of the things that people may call issues or lack of opportunities, those things I'm really dedicated to improving and to calling on our government and calling on different levels of authority to support improvements in these areas, because I really do like the province and I wish that I could get everything out of it that I want.
Got it. So your field is something that you feel like living here and having roots here would also help you in that field because you know the place.
Yeah, I think definitely. And even as a political science major now in my undergrad, a lot of people say, oh, you have to move to Ottawa to be successful. But there's a very lively political scene here as well. And I think someone who's studying human rights and their development, it's a lot of opportunity here in Manitoba to develop.
Let's talk about Alberta and BC, where people are going. Sam, can you understand the draw? Tell us a bit about sort of what you're thinking. And where else have you lived, I should ask, because you said you lived elsewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I've lived in New Brunswick for a couple of years, and I also lived in England for a couple of years.
Okay, so not Alberta or BC.
Not Alberta or BC.
Do you understand the draw there, or other provinces maybe? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I think for starters, there's like a geographical draw that's hard to kind of get around. So when you're in Alberta, you have the mountains nearby, depending on where you are, and
it's pretty.
It's pretty, and I think that goes for BC as well. So I think that's something that you're not really going to be able to move around. But I think a big part of it is that people move for careers, not just for jobs. And if they feel like there are industries that are more developed, or they can kind of develop themselves more professionally in those places, that would really be a big draw.
Okay, so you kind of agree with Kyler was saying with master's education and things like that. Do you agree with that as well, or it's also the job pool you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some programs that that wouldn't be present here in the same way. I think part of it is that Alberta and BC have multiple major centers, and so there's just such a big, range of places that you can go. Whereas if you're looking to go to Winnipeg or to Manitoba, you have a few different universities. You don't really have the same kind of options. So I think that's a big factor.
It's a smaller pool. Is there a career you're thinking of that would be more advantageous somewhere else? It's okay if not. I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm similar to Victoria. I think law would be interesting. I think working in politics would be interesting.
Got it. But I mean, are there careers you think that you could build easier, or one could build easier outside of Manitoba than here? Or you mean any career because of those population centers?
Yeah, I think for the things that I'm interested in, I could probably do them just as well in Manitoba as anywhere else, especially because they seem to really benefit from having a strong social network, and fortunately I have that.
You have that. Yeah. It's all those connections, right?
Yeah.
Kyler, what are you thinking as we're in this part of the conversation?
So I think there's like three major reasons why people are leaving. There's a lot, but I would boil it down to three. And when we're talking about the province, it's Manitoba. It's not just Winnipeg. It's everywhere. I think it's education, like we mentioned. I think it's opportunity, right? People are looking, and they're not finding job opportunities, or they're not finding opportunities in their jobs. And this is especially white-collar jobs. There's not enough here to facilitate a bigger growth in your career.
Okay.
And then the last one would just be like accessibility to cool stuff. It's not very easily able to get to the cool stuff. You need to look.
Is Alberta and BC cooler than us?
I think not, but that's just because I live here.
Yeah.
That would be my take. But I think that there's a lot more going on.
Yeah. That bigger population, bigger center may be part of that. And also just, like we said, it's beautiful too. So it's a different place.
Yeah.
What about when you look at Winnipeg specifically? I understand you think that transit actually affects the decisions for some people to stay or to go.
I'm so lucky that I'm the one who gets to talk about this, because I have never heard a single good story about transit. I'm going to be fully open.
Victoria's dying over here.
Because it's true. And it is very true. And I feel blessed that I get to speak on this on behalf of people. It is a very, very messy system. And I don't blame bus drivers. I don't blame anybody who works in it. I blame the infrastructure.
Tell me why that's a big thing to you as a young person when you're thinking about your future, about the city, your accessibility and such. Tell me.
Let's draw back to the cool stuff argument, right? If I want to go downtown at night, how am I going to get there? It's going to take forever to get there. Then it's not going to be safe. And then nothing's open at night. You don't walk around. Then you have to bus home. You got to figure it out. There's no easy way to get to all these things if you don't have a car. That is terrible.
So it limits the way that you experience the city.
It's the accessibility factor.
And that factors your lifestyle.
Absolutely.
Yep. It's interesting because many, many, many years ago, I went to Calgary and they had this always well-established bike path system. And it was sort of like, oh, okay, it did change sort of attitudes. So I can understand what you're talking about, why you're talking about transit. Just as the last question, let's go around all three of you now. 822 on CBC, it's our Gen Z panel. How do we keep people in Manitoba? So what can be done? Because you were saying, Sam, a lot of this is tough, right? You can't overcome our population size, or you can't overcome that we have no mountains out the window for the beauty. So what do you think can be done either by employers or leaders to retain people?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's these wouldn't be easy kind of fixes, but one thing that kind of comes to mind would be even if there were more direct flights that kind of went in and through Winnipeg, then it'd be easier to kind of have a larger kind of proximity to other places. I think I agree with Kyler that things like transit and public infrastructure are really important, especially when you're further into your career. Maybe you can drive or you have more money to get around in different ways, but I think those kind of formative experiences of how you're moving through the city do kind of shape the relationship you have with it. So helping develop people's kind of relations with the city in a positive way is really important there. I think that those would be the big things.
Victoria, what about you? What can be done to keep people here?
I think just greater investment in all of these above mentioned things, having the government invest more in transit, in funding education, in funding healthcare, in funding access to culture and nightlife and all these different things, rent assist, ways that, zoning can be changed to ensure there's enough grocery stores so that there's not food deserts for people that do end up living here. There's lots of ways that government can work with employers to offer subsidy for hiring young professionals or things like that. And I think, it's time that we see a bit more Gen Z perspective in these decisions.
Do you guys think we appeal to the old people in the burbs?
I hope so.
Families in the burbs that are staying and make it attractive, but maybe not so much to the younger generations.
I mean, I think if we can make everybody happy, that is the end goal. And I know
it doesn't have to be either or. Fair enough.
Yeah, it doesn't seem possible, but I do think that if everybody works together, if everyone's happy, everyone's happy.
So what's your last word on how to keep more young people here?
Well, I think, Manitoba may be flat, it may be spaced out, but all that means is there's a lot of room for improvement. And I think that's very empowering to think as a person. I really think that, of course, there's the budget issue, there's the people issue, there's community. But I think that if we change our mind and we look at it instead of how do we keep people here to how do we make people want to be here, we can go a long way.
All right. Thank you all three. Really good panel discussion this morning. Appreciate it, Kyler.
Of course.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that is our panel for today, our Gen Z panel. We always throw it to you to weigh in if you'd like. 788-3205. Sam Lamont's 22, University of Manitoba history student. Victoria Romero, 23, also U of M, studying poli-sci. And Kyler Zanelli, 22, student at the University of Manitoba studying business.
Fake ads, fake stores, and even fake mistakes. Not long ago in France, Bounty candy bars were switched with Snicker wrappers on purpose.
Hey, ¿cómo se va, man?
At Snickers, we're not us when we're hungry.
The world of marketing has discovered there's money in fake-vertising on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on demand on CBC Listen.
Time right now, as I mentioned, is right around 8:25, 3 degrees in Winnipeg. Next local news coming up at 8:30. We also want to mention our call-in today on Radio Noon. Every single day, we invite you to call in on a topic of the day. In case you've never taken part, it's between 12:30 and 1 o'clock. Bit of music to get us to the news. Manitoba Métis singer-songwriter Brandy Vezina's tune, Paper Town.
46 years old when the mill shut down. We started at the Rusty Nail. It ended up at Paper Town. Picture in a frame, him on a picket line. Tell my friends I ain't coming back Tell my mama that I'm doing just fine. Sonny's chicken house, Robbie showed up drunk again, saying something about remember when we were on the charging floor, man. Ray J stayed in town, kept a stragglers couple alive. The Stones went to the Nationals. Those were very good times. Oh, kings of Paper Town. Here where sorrows drown, just another company town, where an old black train is all that remains of what life used to be. Chuck was drinking and dialing, 28 sleeps to go. No more crying to the radio. Daddy, when you're coming home. All down Cherry Street, vacant houses boarded up, back roads and pickup trucks, out of time and out of luck. Oh, kings of Paper Town. Here where sorrows drown, just another company town, where an old black train is all that remains of what life used to be. Here where sorrows drown, just another company town, where an old black train is all that remains of what life used to be.
Paper Town, Manitoba Métis singer-songwriter Brandy Vesna with Scott Nolan. Well, I mentioned the Radio Noon call-in, and to combat all of the sad, bad, gloomy news, they're going to pick it up. Corey's in with the topic today.
Yeah, I don't know if you've been on the internet lately. Winnipeg internet has been blowing up. There's a guy, Blake Anderson. He was in Workaholics. He's like a big comedy guy. He was in town. He's a celebrity, and he was gushing on a podcast with a bunch of buddies about VJ's Diner and how amazing they were and how
the burger.
The burger, exactly. And so we thought, let's just have a little fun on a January Tuesday, and let's talk Winnipeg's best burger. We actually have a guy that joined us. He actually went around and tried every Fat Boy in the city, and he rated them. So he's going to come join us, and we're just going to get people to call in. What's the best burger, and more specifically, what's the best Fat Boy? If you also want to get really specific.
Manitoba or Winnipeg? Because
we're
going
to keep it full Manitoba. We got to keep it full Manitoba.
We got to widen that out.
And if you, you can if you own a burger joint, you want to pitch. Come on down. We'll talk about it. So.
Between 12:30 and 1. Right now, your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it is 3 degrees. That's without the minus in front of it. 3 degrees, but our temperature is going to take a slide as that wind picks up, falling to -8 this afternoon. There's a good chance of rain showers changing to flurries later this morning. The man accused of spray painting hate-related graffiti in Winnipeg last week is now in police custody. Oliver Aderhoff was rearrested after a home in Crescentwood was broken into on Friday. He now faces 3 new offenses in addition to 14 counts of mischief linked to graffiti incidents on January 2nd. Those incidents were at a synagogue, a mosque, a high school, and some homes and vehicles. The new charges are break and enter, public mischief, and failing to comply with a court order. The director of the Manitoba Institute to Combat Anti-Semitism says it's heartbreaking and distressing to learn another swastika has been found at Kelvin High School. This time, the symbol was drawn inside the locker of a Jewish student. The Institute's Belle Jarnewski says it needs to be taken seriously.
Well, my heart sank because, this was really personal. This was targeted. I understand that the individual who vandalized the school last week has been identified and was arrested. So this is clearly someone else and targeting a Jewish student.
Jarnewski is offering resources from the Institute to Calvin to help educate staff and students about the Holocaust. She thinks the school should also have an assembly as soon as possible to address anti-Semitism. Winnipeg police are investigating. Manitoba won't force its civil servants back to the office full-time. Premier Rob Canoe says he is satisfied with Manitoba requiring at least 3 days of in-office work for public servants. Ontario and Alberta are ordering their workers back to the office full-time. The federal government is also looking to increase office work for its employees. Kyle Ross is at the MGEU, the union for many of Manitoba's civil servants.
People plan their lives around their work arrangements with their employers, right? They plan their home, their daycare, their drop-off for schools. All these things are planned around their work flexibility arrangements. So having the Premier say we're not going to change it, I think it really gives them some comfort in what's coming in the future.
30% of Manitoba's civil servants work remotely at least once a month. A 15-year-old boy in Winnipeg faces a charge in a sextortion case involving a teenage girl in Belgium. Winnipeg police say the two had been in contact for about a year and the girl was coerced into sending intimate images. The images were then posted on social media without her consent. The boy, police say, demanded the girl send money to make him stop uploading those images. She contacted Belgian police. The Canadian Centre for Child Protection alerted Winnipeg police about the case in October. The centre's Jacques Marcoux would like to know if the girl tried to get the images removed before police got involved.
What we see in a lot of cases is platforms will drag their feet or will even ignore requests for help from users, and they will only act once it gets escalated to the point where law enforcement or cyber tip lines like us get involved, and that's a huge problem.
Marcoux says social media platforms make it easy to post anything online. He says the Canadian government should introduce regulations to make companies add features to enhance safety. Patrick Allard says the Manitoba Progressive Conservatives made a mistake when they suspended him from the party. Yesterday, PC leader Abby Kong condemned Allard for posting Facebook comments in support of immigration and customs enforcement in the U.S. This just days after an ICE agent shot and killed a woman in Minneapolis. Allard questions why a Conservative party can be upset with a statement in support of border control. He says the PC should call themselves the Progressive Party instead.
They've shown that they're not willing to work with strong conservatives, and they want to cater to the center of the road, middle of the road people who tend to vote for the NDP. They've shot themselves in the foot. They've told their conservative base, we don't want you.
Khan says the PC board will meet to decide whether to kick Allard out of the party for good. Well, fire damage and a milder winter are making things difficult for groups in Flin Flon hoping to open winter trails. Hundreds of kilometers were damaged in last summer's wildfires. And outside of one winter storm, there hasn't been much snow in the area to keep those trails covered. Flin Flon Ski Club President Dean Grove says burned trees are a hazard.
We've had to take a lot of trees out that have fallen across the trail. We anticipate we're going to have a lot more that are going to fall down after because they've had the roots burned, but they're still standing.
Local snowshoe and snowmobile groups have also reported burned buildings and bridges. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
That is our news department, Heather Wells, Megan Ketcherson and Joni Nicolo, all out there. Big thanks to them for this morning. Also, our Studio 15 team, Corey Funk, Abby Adiemi, and Darren Marash. Our producer is Nellie Gonzalez, who produces all the shows in our unit. Leif Larson, the senior producer of audio at CBC Manitoba. And those who worked on the program, our associate producers, Issa Kixon and Sophia Peralta Barone, as well as reporter Jim Agapito and Civic Affairs reporter Cameron McLean on today's program. All right, a last look at what's been really quiet, Cor.
Yeah, slushy now, though, but it will get colder and slipperier as things get chillier today, so look out for that as maybe on your commute home.
All right, and Abby?
The mild temperatures down south giving way to that cold front already sweeping in. We sighting rain already at the airports as I speak right now. Seeing temperatures between 1 degree and 4 degree. Most of the temperatures would drop to -8 later down south, while up north we're seeing temperatures reaching -21 later.
Yeah, take it easy on the way home. Bundle up north. Thank you, Abby. Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, and we will be back again tomorrow with another edition of the show right here on CBC. This is Information Radio. I'm Marcy Marcusa, and The Current with Matt Galloway coming up next. Stay with us on 89.3.